The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
I'm Shannon Penrod, and I'm excited to be here with you this morning. It's going to be a great show because we've got a great guest and some really cool things to talk about. I want to start out by telling you that as long as there's internet connection, we're going to be here. We're Monday through Friday now, and we're back to doing one live show a day. But you know what? I so enjoyed doing those Card Hero segments, and I just thought that they were so uplifting that we're talking about bringing that back occasionally. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Were you loving it too? And even if you're not a card family, did it make you feel warm and cozy and like, oh my gosh, there are young people out there who care about our kids and that's going to help to make it okay? Write in and let me know so that I can figure out, like, is this like a once a month thing? Is this a once a week thing? What is this? Because I'd love to hear from you guys what you think about that. Which brings me to my very first point, which is there are lots of ways to get in touch with us here at Autism Live. And that's like here and here and here and here and here, right? Because we're all spread all over the place. But excuse me, there are lots of ways to connect. And, people say, well, I don't understand why you say it this way, but remember, everybody's watching this at a different way and at a different time. So if Traven can show us the graphic that we have, and I'll talk about it in the meantime, that I love to tell you about our homepage, which is autism-live.com. That's our homepage, and there's a little bit of everything that we do there, including our whole library is accessible there. So you can search videos from 9 years ago. I guess it's technically eight and a half years ago that you can search there. And you can search by topic, you can search by question, you can search all kinds of things, right? You can also find the toy guide there, and there is a live chat at the bottom of the page. And well, it's only live when we're live. So I guess there's a chat at the bottom. It's not always live. It's live 1 hour a day. But there are lots of ways to watch the show, and you can watch the live show right there, or you could go and watch it on Twitter at Autism Live Show. I know it looks like Autism Lives How, but it's not. It's Autism Live Show. You can watch us on Facebook, which so many of you guys do. You can watch us on Periscope. And of course, you can watch us live on YouTube. And we love it when you guys do there. We especially see that you guys like to do comments on Facebook and YouTube. And you can also comment on our autism-live.com because of that chat at the bottom. Now, if you want to watch us recorded, you can still watch us recorded on Facebook. You can watch us recorded. Actually, you can watch us recorded on any of those, right? If you just find the link on Twitter, you can watch it. And absolutely, our library is available on Autism Live's YouTube channel. But you can also catch us as a free download on iTunes. And by the way, you can use there's a toggle button where you can do either the just sound, so you can take us for a walk, or you can do sound and picture if you want to be watching on your computer. And we encourage you to subscribe. Yes, you can do that. You can also watch us, listen to us on Spotify, and you can listen to us on Deezer, and you can listen to us on iHeartRadio.com. So we absolutely love, and whatever way works for you. I'm sure that there are other ways. And for instance, we didn't know about putting our stuff on Deezer until one of you told us. So if there's a way that you're like, well, I get the rest of my podcasts here, Shannon, and you're not there, I would love to know that, because we want to be all the places that you want us to be, and we want to be there free. Our goal here, mission number one, and there's a lot of talk about mission lately because, boy, when you face an emergency, it's really important that you know what your mission is, right? Our mission here remains to give you information and inspiration. And I feel now it's more important than ever, because if there was ever a time that you needed information and ever a time that you needed inspiration, I'm guessing it's now. right? So please know that this show is for the larger autism community. And what I mean by that is, of course, it is for our individuals who are on the autism spectrum. That is an of course and a first and foremost, right? But it is also for all the people who love those people. So that's for the parents and the caregivers and the grandparents and the uncles and the aunts and the teachers and the ABA therapists, right? And the speech and language pathologists and the OTs and all of those people. Speaking of OT, by the way, Kara Kaczynski sends her regards. We got our dates messed up. So she's going to be back on the show another time. We were supposed to have her yesterday and she was not there, but it was because she thought she was here today. She's not here today because we have a really special guest today. So, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But I want to start by just saying that we do have lots of experts that are on the show. I am not one of them. Please do not confuse me for one of the experts. You can confuse me for a lot of other things, and people have, but do not confuse me for an expert in autism. Yes, I've been doing a show for a long time, interviewing lots of people. Yes, I consider I have an informed opinion, but that does not make me an expert. Let's all be clear about that, right? But I deeply care about you and what you're going through and want to help you. If my mission is to give you information and inspiration, then, I care about what you have going on. And I know for sure, as a parent of an individual who was diagnosed with autism at a young age, that this is not one size fits all, right? So it's really important for me to give you lots of different pockets of information about, different resources and different things that can help different people on the spectrum. So if you tell me, hey, I'm looking for resources for a 14-year-old who, has difficulties with X, Y, and Z, that helps me because I go, okay, let's find that, right? Put me to work for you. Because I care deeply. I want to be your cheerleader. Si se puede, right? We hold virtual hands and we get through this together. Okay. Having said all of that, we like to start the show whenever possible with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are those experts talking about? What does it have to do with us? Why do we care? Right? Like, do I really have to learn this new thing? Is it going to be of any use to me? And the truth is, I struggled with it in the beginning, but I found that if you know these things, it can help you to get the things that you want, right? So we learn them a little bit at a time. So first we give you the actual definition, which we try to make fun of because that's my job. And then we give you a working definition, which I try to explain so that it's usable because that's also my job. Okay. So it's all of our jobs, right? Today's term, it's one that we've used several times before, but it's not the most frequent term that we use, and it's called socio-dramatic play. Doesn't that sound like, something that a bunch of eggheads would sit and talk about on some show that's on at 2:00 in the morning, right? Socio-dramatic play. All right, let's take a look at our actual definition so that we can see if there's any fun to be had at poking fun of it. So socio-dramatic play. And it says pay, but it should say play. Play which involves the acting out of scripts, scenes inspired by real life, books, cartoons, and other media. Individuals take or assume roles using themselves and or characters like dolls, figures, and puppets as they interact together on common themes. All right. We got a couple of typos in there. I got to tell you, one of the hardest things of working at home is that we are used to having big screens and double screens, and I need a new pair of glasses because I can't see up close. And I'm typing things. Today, it took me 5 minutes to type the word available because I kept putting different letters. I'm a bad typist. And I would go, look, that's not what it says. Okay, but you get the idea. So socio-dramatic play, and I love how, it sounds like a little bit like upper crust lip British, doesn't it to you? But it also sounds like fun. Hello, doesn't this sound like, because I you know me, I love the puppets. Don't make me get the puppets out again. They're here in the room. But okay, so there's not a bad definition, but let's take a look now. Let's water it down just a little bit and go to our working definition. And figure out why this is useful to us. So the working definition, socio-dramatic play, is make-believe or pretend play. And I think we're all a little bit more familiar and comfortable with those terms, right? Because we all did this. We were all kids. We all played at some point, even if we were forced to do it, right? Because this is not necessarily everybody's happy place. Like the expectation that if a kid wants to play this way, that they will is really it's wrong. It's misleading, right? Because some kids will really, take this on and they'll be really excited about it, but other kids have to be taught this. And a lot of times for our kids on the autism spectrum, this has to be taught to them. It has to be taught to them, and we need to show them why this is reinforcing, which means we're going to have to make it reinforcing. When you were little, I don't want to presume, so let's say when I was little, the big thing was let's play house. We didn't have video games. And so it was let's play house. And it was, we stood there and everybody shouted out what role they wanted to play, right? And I always wanted to be the mom. That's all I ever wanted to be, was the mom, or the dog. I wanted to be the dog too, right? And that right there shows you the imagination, that taking on of other roles. And think about it for a second. We know that one of the deficits that our kiddos have on the autism spectrum is that perspective taking part, where they're able to think about it from another person's point of view, is often diminished. It doesn't mean that it's like never going to be there. We can shore that up. And part of the way that we shore that up is through socio-dramatic play. If I'm playing the dog, right, then I have to stop for a second and go, okay, what makes me the dog? Oh, well, the dog is on 4 legs. So now I need to get down and be on all 4 legs. And a dog can't speak, but what can a dog say? And I've got to think through all of those things. And when a kiddo, like sometimes you got to show the kiddo, you got to model the behavior. And by the way, that's not just kiddos on the spectrum. Sometimes there are completely neurotypically developing kids who have to be shown how to do this. And it's one of my most favorite things in life. Hello, I have the master's degree in theater, and I love to play with little kiddos for that moment when they get it. Oh, the rules are different now, right? And when I get down on the floor and I pretend to be the dog and go, right? And when the kiddo goes, oh, she's being the dog. That's what she's doing. She's being the dog. And then you see it cross over and they go, I want to try it because that looks like fun. And then they're the dog. Super great for their brains. Super great for their brains because they're taking on another person or another animal or another object's point of view, which we want. That's flexibility. That's perspective taking, right? And it also is very freeing. If any of you have ever been in a play, and I love talking about this with Temple Grandin, she said that one of the things that her mom did for her was that she made her do community theater and that she loved it. First of all, it had a sense of community because when you're working on a play together, everybody knows what the mission is. We're getting ready to do the show, and the show has to be good for the audience, which means that we have very defined rules that here, all these things happen and it's the only place where the audience sees, but backstage we're being quiet so that they don't know that we're there, right? There's a bunch of rules. And everybody's on mission together and it's very clear. But also it's a vacation from yourself. You don't always know what to say, right? You don't always have the perfect line. Somebody says something to you, how you always have that thought where, I wished I thought of this. I would have said this, right? None of us knows the perfect thing to say all of the time. But when you're playing somebody else, you get to let that go. You don't have to be involved in what's worrying you right now, and you get to be someone else for a couple of minutes. And that is very therapeutic. Some people go on to make a living from it, and that's a great thing too, but you don't have to make a living at it. We can all make believe or pretend. And this isn't just for kids, this is for adults too. When we are doing our creative visualization, we're make-believing in our heads, right? But it's really important that we give this outlet to our kiddos for their development, but also for their stress levels. So make believe or pretend play, super fabulous. Right now is the perfect opportunity in your house. You can put make believe play on your visual schedule and your kids will request it. Put together a box of costume pieces whether it's things that you would use from, when they have those photo booth things, or it can be all the hats and scarves or your Halloween costumes. I remember years ago, we had a play date back when you could have a play date, because now my son is too old. We don't have play dates anymore. We have hangouts. But I remember when we used to do a play date, and I had a play date with a really good friend and her son. And she had an older son too, who was a way teenager. And she said, bring over all your Halloween costumes and I'll get mine out too. And we put them in the middle of the floor. She and I sat there and had herbal tea. And we let these 3 boys, 2 of them were 10 and the older one was like 16 years old. They had the best play date ever, because they kept putting on the costumes and pretending they were people, like Darth Vader and, all these different things. And they would have like these, fake lightsaber battles, but they had such a good time, because being somebody else for a couple of minutes, super fun. I encourage you, get out the costumes, have a blast. You do it with them, model the behavior, show them how much fun it can be to be somebody else for a minute. They're not going to want to do it to begin with, but once you do a couple of them, they'll be excited to do it, and they'll be excited to do it over the weekend too. So you can put it back on the visual schedule. Socio-dramatic play, super fabulous. And you're going to see why that's our topic for the day in a few minutes. But we always have a question for you. And our question today, are you ready for this? I'm going to take a drink while we get there. Okay, what's the hardest part of your day? We need to start talking about this kind of stuff, right? Because this is an opportunity right now while we're home to look at some of the hard stuff. I know you're like, an opportunity to look at the hard stuff, but look, if we could change it, wouldn't that be worthwhile? So what's the hardest part of your day? And be writing that into us, because in the coming weeks, that's what we want to take on. If we can come out of this COVID thing and be in a different place on a couple of things, like 2 things, whether, it's that, the morning routine is the hardest thing of the day. If there's a way that during this COVID emergency that we could change that, and the morning could cease being the hardest part of the day for you, or it could be significantly better, that would be a great mission, right? So write in, tell us what the hardest part of your day is. Gotta name it, right? So that we can claim it and fix it. Because there are things that can be done to help all of us to make it better. But write it and tell us. Now, we always have a topic of the week. And our topic this week, and I got to look for my other thing. Our topic this week, and I think that's our actual, that was supposed to be our activity. Can you tell that Traven and I have not had a production meeting lately? Our topic this week, go ahead and take that down, Traven, because that's going to give it away for later. But our topic this week is doing a marathon, not a sprint. Because, my friends, that is where we are. We all started this whole thing. I remember, I'm a worrywart, and in the weeks leading up to having to be at home, and my family went home to stay home a week before anybody else did, because I'm that level of paranoid and I have autoimmune issues. And, so we went home a week before. And I remember thinking, okay, at some point they're going to call it and we're all going to have to stay home for 2 weeks. So in my head, I was always planning for a 3-week staycation. Okay. So in any case, so I was planning for a 3-week thing, which to me at the time was a marathon, not a sprint, but I planned for a 3-week thing, and we're in week 5. I'm just going to say we are in week 5. And here in Los Angeles, we have been told that we need to plan on at least another 4 weeks. So there you are. It is officially a marathon, and it's probably a marathon for all of us. So I want all of us to be looking at it and going, okay, if I'm here now, it's like Gilligan's Island. They went on a 3-hour tour and they ended up staying. And at a certain point, you make do, right? You go, okay, well, I'm going to move the toothpaste over here for a minute because it's just going to work for a minute, right? And we make do. But if it's going to be another 4 more weeks, like, we got to find a place for the toothpaste to be where it can be. You know what I'm saying? So we got to settle in, and we got to get our hive mind geared towards a marathon. And that's partially why I have been advocating that we all make ourselves a visual schedule, right? And that it exists formally someplace, not just in your brain, that you make a visual schedule. I want you to know that Autism Live has always had a Pinterest page, and we are working really hard right now to every week add 5 new topics for things to do that can improve this marathon that we are on. So go and check it out on our Autism Live on the Pinterest page. We've got a total of 10 up there right now. And one of the ones for this week, and I didn't get to it yesterday, but it's art projects. And I specifically was asked to do it for 5 to 8-year-olds. Things that they could do at home that wouldn't be really hard. And so there are, I don't know, like 100 and some odd pins that I put there of all these different art projects that you could do, and trying to be mindful about the fact that you want to use resources that you already have. One of which I want to show you right now, and it's the whole idea of paint taping. Now, I happened to have some very inexpensive canvases because my son had a project the week before all this happened. And so I went to Michael's and I bought a package of canvases. Now, you may not have that, but you might have paper. And if you don't have paper, you might have wrapping paper. And let me just tell you that wrapping paper is one of the greatest art supplies that there is, because you can use the printed side or you can use the back and it becomes a paper thing. So I also happen to have painter's tape, which means that it releases easily. So I can peel it off and it won't harm anything. If you don't have painter's tape, you can use other tape. And if you're gonna use wrapping paper, I would encourage you to use, it's very likely gonna tear. So I would encourage you to use like a cellophane tape so that you can still see through it. But what you do is you take whatever paper or canvas that you are using, and a lot of the art supply stores are shipping right now. And very happy to ship you stuff. So I think it was $7 for 5 of these at Michael's, which was a really good deal. And the painter's tape is something that's like $1.50, and the hardware stores are shipping as well. But what you do is you give the roll of tape, where's my tape, to the kiddo, and you help them to put the tape in whatever shape that they want on the canvas. And then you let them paint different colors in the different squares. Now, there's lots of ways to do this. And if you want to make it more educational, or if your kiddo is really little and is still working on their fine motor, you could tape different shapes onto the back of the wrapping paper and have like a circle. It'll be hard to make a circle out of tape, but you're brilliant and I know you can handle it. You can make a circle, a triangle, a rectangle, and a square, right? And you can be working on shapes at the same time. But the idea is that they paint within the tape, but the tape gives them leeway so that if they go over it a little bit later on, after everything is dried, you pull off the tape, and they're brilliant. Every single one I've ever seen done is absolutely scrumptious and beautiful and worthy of hanging on the wall. We did this years ago at an autism walk, and we had, I don't know, like, I want to say like 60 canvases, and we taped them off. And kids came up and picked one square to paint, and sometimes they would put their handprint on them or whatever. And then we auctioned them. And so they hang all over the offices at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, because we brought them into the office, and it was a fundraiser to raise money for iPads through ACT. Now, the reason why I'm telling you that is that it was super easy. We did it on a large scale with 10,000 kids. And I'm telling you, if we could do it with 10,000 kids, you can do it with 1 or 2 or 3. And it's relatively mess free if you, if you just want to make sure that whatever surface the kids are painting on is covered. You can cover it with saran wrap or foil or wax paper, or take newspapers, or use the wrapping paper, right? To cover the table so you're not getting paint everywhere. But a kid does not have to be super at fine motor to do this. And it's very reinforcing, because even if they, color outside the lines, it still looks beautiful. It still looks beautiful. And even if you can't pull up the tape, because we let ours cure for quite a while, we didn't pull the tape off. And there was this big discussion about maybe we shouldn't, because they looked so beautiful just with the tape. So, have a ball. It'll be fun and therapeutic for you. It's great for working on the fine motor and using your eyes to be able to follow where you're going. And it's a really beautiful, beautiful thing. And then for the kids to see you hang their artwork, that is a self-esteem builder. So there you go. That is your activity for the day. And we have several pins on Pinterest right now. If you go to our Autism Live Pinterest board and look at all the pins that are there, we've been curating that board for years, by the way. There are other pins, but I've started a whole series and it says at home, and then whatever it is. And you can find all kinds of good stuff there. And I'm just going to keep putting stuff there for you guys to do. Okay. All right. All right. So we have a lot of people who are saying hello. We want to say hello to Johanny. Yes, who I was up talking with very late, and then we had to get up very early. What on earth are we doing? But she's got her lessons plan done for the day. She's got to share with us where she's getting her lesson plans from, because I know that a lot of you, I watched Drew Barrymore this morning on the Today Show talking about how she thought she had it all together and then school started again and how she had to put her head down and cry because it was so hard. Love Drew Barrymore. Okay, but I was promising you that I would tell you why we did Socio-Dramatic play this morning. It's because our guest, who's going to be joining us right now, in fact, I've kept her waiting way too long. Our fabulous guest this morning is Elaine Hall. Some people know her as Coach E. She is a brilliant, brilliant woman and a brilliant mom. She is the person who started the Miracle Project and is famous for the Miracle Project and famous for the lovely Autism the Musical, which is about to have a sequel start on YouTube later on this month. And there she is. Elaine, how are you?
I am so good. I'm so good. It's wonderful to see you. I want to give like a virtual hug to you.
I know. Let's virtual hug. Isn't it like it's crazy when you don't see somebody for a while and then you see another human being, you're like, I know you. You're beautiful. It really makes you appreciate faces and the human spirit, I gotta say. We've created a state of deprivation from seeing each other, and so it's a wonderful thing. How are you doing in this COVID emergency?
Well, thank goodness we're hunkering down and hanging in and finding joy and seeking peace, and really thank goodness we're really doing well.
Glad to hear that.
There's ups and downs, just like all of us. And I think because we have this phenomenal community and a mission to be of service, that it keeps us going. So
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. But as you said, it's not easy every day. And one of the things that you and I had talked about yesterday, that you said, "Oh, Shannon, this is what I want to talk about." This is a little bit rough for a lot of people. And I'm hearing a lot of people at this point in the game who there's some guilt about feeling like they need to be doing a lot more, that the expectation is that they should be solving all the world's problems, educating their children, being their speech and language pathologist, being their OT, being their ABA provider. And by the way, can you get your taxes done and find a way to get groceries in here and cook and clean? I mean, I'm getting nervous talking about all the things we're supposed to do. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's in a good day, we parents of kids that experience the world differently feel overwhelmed. We're always feeling, I know for me, and I wrote about this in my book, Now I See the Moon. I was always feeling that at the end of the day, I hadn't done enough. That was what I didn't do enough. I didn't do enough. So that was kind of like, I think with autism, neurodiversity, we're the only parents that were taught that we have to cure our child, that it's up to us. And I don't think there's any other thing that causes that kind of over sense of responsibility. And even then, when Neil was younger and we weren't involved in this, what I had to learn was that the most important thing that I needed to do was simply to love him.
Yeah.
And
job one.
But actually before job one was job, whatever, the initial one is to love and care for myself.
Amen, sister.
Yeah, because if I'm not 100%, then how can I be even 50% for my son. And right now, with the virus and the challenges that we have, I mean, I'm getting so many emails and so many webinars and so many to-dos. And then at the same time, I got to get my abs in gear, you know, because I got to next 30 days to get in shape. And meanwhile, I'm snacking. I mean, you know, I'm eating matzah like crazy. So, and chocolate. So right now is a time of ultimate self-love, self-care, and just love for our kids because and our families, because all of those to-dos, they're going to be there.
Yeah.
I've been consulting with a number of parents, and one of the things that one mom was so beautiful. We always start off with a meditation. And I was thinking, people have been asking me to come on their shows and do a meditation. So I'm happy to come on at any time.
Thank you. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's schedule it.
All right. We will schedule it. And we do that. We schedule.
Yes.
So,
yes.
But I always start with a meditation and then just check in with the parents and ask them what's going on. And one mom said, you know, at the end of the day, I've helped them online with their on-school classes. I've done some physical kinds of OT work with them to get their bodies going. And at the end of the day, I just want to sit with them and watch TV. I just don't have the energy to play board games. I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, like, please. It's like board games on top of everything else. So I was sharing with her that some of the greatest memories I have of my beloved mother were at the end of the day, watching James Dean and Elizabeth Taylor, watching The Tonight Show, just being in her presence. And that the board games, you know, just hanging out together, that we're enough.
Yeah.
And that we're doing enough.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I think I'm guilty as charged that I keep throwing things out there and saying, if you're looking for something to do, here's where to go. But but thank you for reminding all of us, like, no one should be doing all of it.
That's right.
Like, absolutely. You know, one of the things we keep saying is one thing a day, you know, do one thing a day to sort of break up the monotony of it. But I'm from a television family. My dad was a technical director for television, and television was the main thing in every room in our house growing up. And those are the memories that I have of being with my parents, is watching a show together, whether it was when we were young, and I'm going to date myself here, but, you know, watching the Monkees.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. As a child.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved the Monkees. And then later on, you know, like, you know, I have the memory of watching my parents watch Dallas. I wasn't really watching Dallas, but the whole Who Shot JR, these are the memories that I have, that I hold dear with my parents, that it was a way of connecting with them through whatever age. And we need to be modeling all kinds of things for our kids, like modeling when to rest, and when to do leisure activities, when to do self-care. I think so often, you brought up the self-care thing. I think so often those of us who are special needs moms feel like we're not doing enough, as you said. So we certainly can't take the time to take care of ourselves, but it's the biggest disservice to our children, because we want to be there and be healthy for them as long as possible. And more importantly, we need to model that self-care for our kids. Don't you think, Elaine?
Absolutely. Our children learn what we often don't say, but what we do. And I know for me, self-care has, especially in my early days with, you know, when he was younger and I went through my divorce and I had, you know, all those big challenges, I realized that if I was happy and complete and full, then I could be that way for Neil. And it's teaching resilience, because he is really doing beautifully in all of this. He's really doing beautiful. I mean, the fact that we can't go to the store, one of our things that we do together is we love going to the store together. And, you know, and get chocolate, and we both love chocolate. So we can't do that right now. And rather than him get upset or have a fit, he just does the sign language for sick. And I'm going, that's right, sweetie. You know, we could get sick, you know, if we have to be careful. So by us taking care of ourselves, we're modeling how to be in a crisis for our children. We're modeling how to breathe and be there wholly for what we need, so that we're not pulling on our children to get anything from them. Yeah. We can be full and we can give love rather than needing something from them or needing something from our spouses or our Zoom. So I want to invite everybody. I know I want to come on and do a whole meditation, but just for right now, I'm going to take 30 seconds. Is that good?
Okay, that's great.
So
let's do it.
How you give everybody one thing to do all every day. All right, I'm going to invite everybody for one thing that they get to do today. All right, so plant your feet on the ground and push into the ground and feel the way your body is pushing into that ground. Take a deep, 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 deep breath. Maybe you haven't breathed like this in a month. Take a deep, deep breath and slowly let the air out. Beautiful. And then one more deep, deep, deep breath. Now fill up your chest with the air and slowly let the air out. And I'd like you to feel, as your feet are touching the ground, the way the ground is supporting your feet. Feel that support. So often we feel that we're aimlessly trying to give and do, and just feel the support underneath you. Breathe in again and breathe out. And now feel the way your tush feels on the chair, and feel the way the chair supports your body. So you are supported by the chair, you are supported by the ground. And take another huge deep breath in. If you care to close your eyes, take a really deep breath in. And let the air out. Feel the way your spine is supporting your body. And your head gently rests on your spine. And visualize a golden light, a sunshine from as high as you can imagine coming all the way down your body, filling you with health, strength, and energy. And set your intention to be loving to yourself today. Breathe in, breathe out, and when you're ready, slowly open your eyes.
That's great. That was great.
30 seconds and we can take care of ourselves, yeah?
Yes, and to model that for our kiddos. We just had somebody a couple of weeks ago talking about the research showing that it's more effective when we're trying to get our kids to do these things, to do it in front of them than to ask them to do it.
Oh, yeah.
That's what gets them to do it, is when they see us modeling it and doing it, that they recognize the difference in us. And if there's a moment, that whether it's a moment of strife or not, where we as the parents say, you know what, I'm going to stop for a second and do my breathing. Right? Then that helps them, and we're walking our talk then, instead of the thing that I think a lot of us do, which is, do your breathing. You're getting upset. Do your breathing. That's going to help.
So true.
Because how do we like that? When I'm getting upset, if my husband says, you need to take a breath, I'm like, don't tell me to take a breath. Right? So that's not going to help me right now. I don't need to take a breath. I'm breathing. Right? Yes, I'm a shrew.
Right now, who isn't,
Oh my gosh.
Everything with our spouses right now is just giving some leniency. Every now and then one's going to have a bad moment, a bad day, and we just walk away, take a breath. So true.
We take turns having the meltdown. It's like, it's really good. If ever there comes a moment where we're both having a meltdown at the same point, I don't know what we'll do, but thus far we take turns. But all this is wonderful, but I also wanted you to talk a little bit, and there may be people who don't know your background, but I want to talk a little bit about the Miracle Project. And you're going to be back on the show in a couple of weeks, right before the big debut of Autism the Musical, the sequel. But let's talk a little bit about your background, how the Miracle Project came to be, how Autism the Musical came to be, to set us up, because people need to be watching Autism the Musical right now on HBO so that they're ready for when the sequel comes out later on this month. So tell us everything.
Oh, thanks, Shannon. I always love just seeing you and being with you. So I was working in TV and film as an acting coach. And what I wanted more than anything was a child of my own. I was working with children called the Child Whisperer, and I wasn't able to give birth biologically. So I chose to adopt a little boy from Russia. And actually, we just celebrated, someone called it a gotcha birthday, which is my son, meeting my son for the first time in Russia. We just celebrated 20, oh my gosh, 23 years of, 24 years of meeting him for the first time. And when he came to me, first you'll see it in Autism the Musical, he ran into my arms, and we rolled on the floor and we were bonded. But when I got him back to the United States, behavior started, and he spun around in circles and stared at his hand for hours at a time. And all I knew was I wanted to reach him. So when he spun, I made it ring around the rosies. And when he flapped his hands, we were birds flapping together. And we bonded through what I learned was that he had autism. And I used music and dance and drama to reach him. I started, is this glitching? Is there a glitch in the, can you guys hear me, see me?
We are totally seeing you, totally hearing you. Okay, I just dropped out so that we could see you fully.
Ah, you dropped out. I was like, where'd she go?
I'm here. We went to full camera on you. So, but I'm here cheering you on.
All right. So okay. Basically, I learned about autism, and I started to train and study with some of the luminaries in the field. Dr. Stanley Greenspan, Dr. Barry Prezant, Dr. Ricky Robinson. I learned everything I could about autism and synthesized what I was learning into a creative way. So how to use music and dance and drama and incorporate everything that I was understanding about behavior and emotions and sensory system. And now we know neurodiversity. And I trained all of my creative friends, actors, singers, and dancers to join my son's world and provide him with what I now know is an intervention, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. This intervention became a methodology that I now use in a program called the Miracle Project. And it's using theater, film, inclusivity, neurotypical, as well as those with all abilities and disabilities coming together using music and dance and drama and film to create community and to create original musicals. The program is now evidence-based, showing that the Miracle Project eases anxiety, develops self-esteem, creates compassion and understanding between those with and without disabilities. And since then, we serve over 170 individuals in Los Angeles, children to adults. Plus, we have programs in San Francisco and Rhode Island, New Jersey, New Hampshire. We're getting calls all the time to have more programs and to train others how to use these methods. So that's the Miracle Project. And in 2008, a film called Autism the Musical, which had followed the Miracle Project for a season, aired on HBO. And Shannon, I think I caught us up to speed. Since then, I've written a book called Now I See the Moon that was selected by the United Nations. And it's my journey as a mom. And as well as I have trained people all over the world, Argentina and Israel. We've been all over the world training people in these methods, and then also I've developed systems for parents and self-care. And so Autism the Musical came out in 2008, and then drum roll please, the sequel is coming out April 28th. So that's what's going on
HBO.
On HBO.
Yeah, so
I actually
like that small little network that nobody's ever heard of before, that like you'll have to look around to find it. HBO, I mean, come on, it's beautiful. And high time that they did that.
Yes.
You know, because it's almost a lifetime in autism different. And so people can be watching Autism the Musical right now on HBO this entire month. Now, is it free on demand? Where is it? Where do we find it?
You know, it's on, Autism the Musical is on demand, and I think Autism the Sequel will be free. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
You know, it's I was able to get a trailer. Do you guys want to see a trailer? I emailed it to you. I know late. They responded late.
Oh,
but
we did not get that and get that ready. I apologize, but
no,
we're having you back.
I apologize. I'm going to come back and you guys will see the trailer for Autism.
Okay.
But you can go on HBO right now and look for Autism this, or go online and look for Autism. Or you know what? You can go to our website, go to themiracleproject.org, and the trailer is on there.
There you go.
And then when I come back, we'll talk more specifically about those two things, which is really incredibly exciting.
It is incredibly exciting. And, you know, I don't know, at the beginning of the show, we always do a jargon of the day, Elaine, and today's jargon of the day, because we knew you were going to be on, was socio-dramatic play. And the idea that when you get to like takes another character on, that it's a type of play, and it's a very beneficial type of play for individuals that are on the spectrum. And just playing that way is great, but then taking that more into the performing arts, which is what you do, it's, as you said, it's evidence-based, that you have been able to be a part of a study that shows that this actually helps our kids. Talk about that a little bit more.
Yes, socio-dramatic play, absolutely. We call it rehearsing for life. And what we do at the Miracle Project is we meet every child, teen, young adult, older adult, exactly where they are right now. So for those who are non-speaking, we meet them there. For those who are feeling shy and withdrawn, we meet them there. Wherever they are, we don't try to change them, fix them. We completely love and accept them for exactly who they are right now. And we have our very highly skilled teachers and coaches, and as well as co-actors, which are non-disabled peers, or I don't want to say non-disabled, neurodiverse, neurotypicals together. And we join everyone where they are using music and movement and creative dramatic activities so that their essential self comes through. Who they are starts to come forward. And often parents say to us that we have one young man and we'll get him on the show. You'd love him. His mom says, I never even knew who my son was. He was so quiet and withdrawn, but he's actually hilarious, incredible sense of humor. And the first year at Miracle Project, he may have said one or two words. And today he's a public speaker and an actor. And it's just helping them to really bring out who they are. And then, yes, playing other characters to embolden them to be a superhero, to be other characters so they can then grow that from the inside. And then, yes, the part that we add at the Miracle Project, in addition to the traditional socio-dramatic play, is we add the witnessing of an audience. And we start that from our first class, where we invite parents to come in for 5 minutes to experience their child in a different way.
Yeah. I gotta say, you know, what you do, it's aptly named. It is the Miracle Project, and all you have to do is go to one performance and you get it. You totally get it. The first time that I ever saw you guys live, it was a million years ago. But I was coming because a good friend's son was in the performance, and I had always wanted to see a Miracle Project live. You know that theater is my background, so I was like, I want to see what this is, and I couldn't move for like the longest time afterwards. I was there with my husband and my son, and we just all were stunned. It's just so moving. It's so beautiful. First of all, to see people on stage, you know, being allowed to be who and how they are. There was a moment in that show where you had one of your actors is somebody that was in a wheelchair and used an assistive device to speak, and they participated fully. And then there was a moment in the show where everything stopped, and they spoke through their device something that they had written. And we just about needed to be picked up off the floor because it was one of the most beautiful things that I had ever seen, heard anywhere. And I've seen some performances, you know, I've seen Baryshnikov jump. Okay. And this, like, I gotta say, resonated more with me, as a person on this planet. And to give that, and that's just one example. Elaine, every time I've come to one of your shows, there is a life-changing moment in it where you get to witness people affirming themselves, you know, taking their place in the spotlight, being who they are, and portraying their truth. And you see the joy that is in them. I believe in the power of theater to heal. You see the joy that is in them, and the thing about it is that it's healing to the audience. We get to see these people and truly get to accept them in all of their shining glory and all of their dignity. And it's very uplifting, very uplifting. I weep, because it's the Miracle Project. So, you know, I know that there are probably people who are watching who are like, well, that's great. I heard you say it's in Los Angeles and San Francisco, and it's in New Jersey, and it's in Rhode Island, but it's not here in Kansas. So I want you to take just a minute and tell them about how they could get the Miracle Project in Kansas, because the truth is they can.
Well, thank you, Shannon. What you're saying about the impact on the audience, it's, you know, the impact that we get to experience every week being with our students and our world, you know, we're in the autistic world, and it's the neurodiverse world, and it's the most beautiful, the most honest, the most sincere, the most extraordinary human beings I've ever known. And how can you get this in Kansas? Well, I do trainings, I do consulting, and help people create it in their own community, which when all this is lifted, I only take 2 cities a year, and everything's on hold right now, but I will be, you know, opening up again probably in hopefully in July, where I'll, you know, be able to train. And I do consults. I work with parents over Zoom, just like this. I work with parents and families. But the positives, the silver lining, the wonderful things about being homebound, we are now doing our classes through Zoom. So,
wow.
In Kansas, we are going to be bringing right to you through this medium. We will be bringing classes to you, and classes in dance. We're going to have dance parties so everyone can dance with us. We're going to have voice lessons and musical theater sing-alongs. What happened is, by necessity, we kept our classes going. Even though we weren't physically meeting, we took 1 week off, learned everything we could, and then started having Zoom classes and seeing the positive impact that we were making on our own students. That they said, you know, once a week they're feeling, they were so depressed, and now they're feeling joy again, and that joy can be transmitted, and it's just so wonderful for our own students that we're now going to open it up nationally.
Okay, so we got a couple of questions and comments that have come in. Kate says,
Sure.
will a recording of this talk be available? Huge fan of Elaine's work and would love to watch from the beginning. And yes, this is being recorded. We podcast to a bunch of different places. It'll be available immediately after the show. You can watch it on Facebook and YouTube. You can download it on iTunes by this time tomorrow. You can listen to it on iHeartRadio, on Deezer, like where would you like to watch it? I'm sure that it's there. And if it's not, tell me, we'll get it there. But we do record and podcast our full show. And then Erin says that our kids need a lot of visual play support. And seeing people interact in different ways. And that's exactly what they see when we are, as you say, rehearsing for life. Tricia says, you ladies are awesome. Thank you. We have something here called Angels on Stage in the Bay Area, which sounds really wonderful.
Yes.
But Tanya wants to know, my son does this for the last 2 years. I would like to figure out if there are workshops to teach parents looking for workshops on writing scripts and monologues. And I got to say, Elaine, if ever there was a time that parents could use a workshop where someone like you shows them how to work in this way, with how to play with their kids in this way, how to get their kids to play in this way. Apparently I have it wrong. It was Tanya who said about the Angels on Stage, excuse me. But in any case, if you were giving a webinar about that, I think you'd have some attendance, parents being coached on how they can do this with their kids.
Oh, that's
just a
great
suggestion.
idea. So
Yeah.
come to our site and give us these suggestions. I'm actually meeting with our program director today. So, and for those of you that sign in tomorrow, come to our site and it's themiracleproject.org, and with all your ideas, and we want to serve. We're going to be putting a meditation once a week parent support, but it's not a traditional support group. It's about mindfulness and meditation and self-care. My husband, who's an incredible cook, if you ever go to my Facebook, you'll see, he's been coaching parents and single dads on how to cook, how to buy for a week and cook for a week, and simple recipes. So we're going to put that together online. We really want to be of service to the community right now, and so just come to our website, ask the question. I think it's info@themiracleproject.org, but you'll see. But just themiracleproject.org, and
Okay.
It's the other thing I want to add. I want to invite everybody, and probably might want to be able to get him on. We're doing a book launch, a free book launch from a young, brilliant autistic writer named Joshua Corwin. And you will hear his name. He is a voice in autism. He is a poet, and his poetry is beautiful. So
love to have him on.
Yeah, but his book signing is this coming Monday, April 20th. So again, come to our website. We'll have information on that as well.
Is it now a virtual book signing?
It's a virtual book signing. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I just assumed that now. It's a virtual book signing that is open to the world. The good thing is people will be able to come in from Kansas and New Jersey,
There we go.
New York, that never would have had that opportunity. And
we got to take our blessings where they can come in this horrible mess that we're in. So there you go. There now, one of the blessings is you can take a class online from the Miracle Project no matter where you are, but you got to go to themiracleproject.org. We're about to be out of time, so I want to just thank Elaine again for all the work that she's doing. I want to remind all of you to go watch Autism the Musical so that you're ready. It's the 28th, is it not, that it comes out on HBO?
Autism the Sequel comes out on April 28th, and right now Autism the Musical is on HBO. So
there we go. So you want to be ready.
Good thing with your family. There's maybe 2 or 3 bad words, so la 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 during that, but
right.
Other than that, it's a good feel good.
I think most of our kids have heard at least 1 or 2 bad words. It's worth watching. So and go to themiracleproject.org to follow Elaine and all the things that she's doing and get some resources from her. I got to say really quickly that we're back tomorrow with Dr. Doreen Grampiche. And she's going to be answering your questions, so don't forget to be here for that. On Thursday, Dr. Kerry Magro is here with us. wonderful, outspoken autism advocate, international speaker. Love having him on the show. And on Friday for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, we have documentary filmmaker Vana Thiero with her new film, Believing in Miracles in Spite of Autism. She's her first film was My Thiero Boy. She's the mom of two young men on the spectrum, so you're not going to want to miss that. All that and more, but we'll be back tomorrow. Thank you so much, Coachy. But we'll be back tomorrow. Give your kiddos a hug for me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now, you guys.
A virtual hug.
Yes. Bye-bye.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and it's a Wednesday. We're coming to you live from many different locations. I'm in my house. Dr. Grant Pichet is in her house. Traven, our producer, is in his house. And this is how we're doing that social distancing, but keep it on. Anyway, we're excited to be here with you. We're going to be live for the next hour. On Wednesday, it is Ask Dr. Doreen. And that is when my iPad has gone completely crazy. That's okay. Is when we have the wonderful Dr. Doreen Grant-Pichet, and she answers your questions in real time. For those of you who don't know Dr. Grant-Pichet, she is a true expert in the field of autism. I believe the preeminent expert in this field in our time, and there is no other time in autism years than now. This is an interesting time. We all have to admit that things have changed a lot in the last month. And of course, when things change for the world, it changes for our autism community. I want to say really quickly, there are lots of ways to connect with us here during this hour for you to ask your question. You can be writing into us right now on YouTube, on Periscope, on Twitter, on Facebook, and this show will podcast to all of those places later on, plus iTunes, where you can get just the audio if you want to take us walking, or you can get the audio and sound if you would like. We're also on iHeartRadio, Deezer, and I'm forgetting one. Spotify. We're on Spotify, folks. So it's free in all of those places. We hope that you'll participate. But our favorite place for you to connect with us is at autism-live.com. That is our homepage. That is where you will find so many resources. First of all, and I guess Traven's going to show you so you can have a visual of all these places that we are. Great. Thank you, Traven. Autism-live.com is the homepage. And it has our entire library of videos right there, and you can search them in multiple different ways so that even if what we're talking about right now on the live show isn't what you need to know, you can search and find other things. We have playlists that are there. So if you like just a certain kind of genre, like you want to just watch Ask Dr. Doreen's, and you want to search just Ask Dr. Doreen, there's a playlist that is just for her. If you're really wild about Temple Grandin, we have a playlist for her. If you want recipes, we have them there. And I got to tell you, we have a new playlist on our homepage and on our YouTube page, and that is Card Heroes. So please check that out, because we had such a great time last week meeting all these amazing people that card that are continuing to bring services to people and make us really excited. You know, and Dr. Grampiche, I'm leaving you out of this. Welcome to be with us. And I'm excited. Sorry?
I said it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Shannon.
I assure you, it is all our pleasure. But we hope that you guys are tuning in whatever way works for you, and writing in whatever way works for you. If you don't know, let me tell you right now that our favorite part, I think I can speak for both Dr. Grampiche and myself, is when you interact with us. So please interact in any of the ways that you choose. And I want to remind you that there is a chat on our homepage where you can chat. And I just want to give people, because people got a little frustrated the other day, Dr. Grampiche, they were like, you are not, answering all of the questions. Oh. I just want you to know that we try our level best. But remember, if you're on Facebook, you're only seeing the questions on Facebook, where we're getting the questions on Facebook and YouTube and Periscope and so on and so forth. And then on the live feature, I have a separate screen right here that shows me who's asking questions on the live feature. So please be patient. Know that we love you and we hear you, and we want to answer your questions. And I do try after the show is over to go back, and I'm days behind. I'm just keeping it real and keeping it honest. I'm days behind, but I do try to go back and catch up with questions and ask you guys more questions and encourage you to write in here. It's okay to ask your question more than once, right? And I apologize, because we're doing the level best we can to help you guys right now in real time, okay? And Dr. Grampiche is here to be able to do that too. So Dr. Grampiche, let's start with a question that because we were talking just before we came live about this amazing new thing that's happening in ABA, because a couple of months ago, none of us would ever conceive of doing telehealth therapy. But now it is the fastest growing, hugest help that we have for families right now. Yeah. And I want to talk about it because I know that there are families who are trepidatious. But what I am seeing very clearly is when a family is like, we put out the challenge last week and said, just try it. Just try it once, see what it does for you. And we have yet to have a single family say, I tried it, it was not the thing for me. In fact, it's been quite the opposite response. People have said, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, because not only is my child, maintaining their skills and in some cases making, great strides, but that the parent is learning things that they've always wanted to know how to do with their kids. So it's very empowering for parents. We want to say that. And we had a question. I think this is the irony of where we're at. Somebody wants to know, is telehealth going to stop when the quarantine stops, or can we choose to have some hours telehealth because they're liking it so much? And I want to know from you, Dr. Grampiche, where are you on the whole of telehealth?
I love that people are actually asking for it now. That's terrific. It all depends on what the payers allow us to do. Obviously, so, from a clinical perspective, telehealth supervision and parent training is just as good as in person, honestly. The telehealth therapy will be somewhat limited, although not really limited. For a lot of kids, it'll work just great. For some kids or adults who need more direct contact, it's not going to be the same as having face-to-face. Now, the question, that's the clinical side of it. In terms of the payers, some payers prior to COVID-19, some of the insurance companies used to allow supervision and parent training through telehealth. Not all, some did. I expect those who did will go back to allowing it. So that will just the way things were. So we will continue in those cases if the families want telehealth. By none of the payers, none of the insurance companies allowed telehealth therapy, just because it was never done before, and it didn't occur to them that it would possibly work. So there, a lot of different people, organizations right now, Shannon, are publishing or about telehealth. In fact, there's a call for publications from many different resources. And so there's a lot coming out in terms of the effectiveness of telehealth, ABA, and it really just depends on whether or not all of that research, published research, will be effective in convincing the payers to allow us to continue doing some telehealth therapy. If it is effective, certainly we will open that up for our families to decide together with their BCBAs. I think if even if it is allowed, we will probably do a combined kind of program where some of the program is done via telehealth and some of it is done in person. And it just really depends on whether or not between now and, when we go back to center-based services, the payers are convinced to continue allowing this. I honestly, as many viewers know, we were really never able to convince some payers, for example, TRICARE, to allow telehealth therapy. So for those folks who are insured by TRICARE, we're only able to provide supervision and parent training right now.
Yeah, I keep saying to all of us, myself first, stay in this moment, do what you can in this moment. Don't stress about everything that happened before. Don't stress about everything that might. Stay in this moment. And in this moment, most of the funders, a lot of the funders are, well, all of them are paying for telehealth for supervision, correct? That's across the board.
No, yes, actually, I will say almost all. There's still a couple holding out, but yes, almost
okay.
all.
So if you are someone who was having ABA services, you be calling your BCBA, get what you can so that you can at least be having consultation on what's happening. I don't want families sitting at home and going, there's nothing we can do. But a lot of, as you said, a lot of the insurance companies are also paying now for telehealth therapy. That's the biggest roadblock right now is us, the parents. We're scared. We're understandably scared. I'm giving you all a whoopee. I'm giving you a hug and a whoopee because I understand your fear. But this is not the time to be afraid, because afraid is when we get paralyzed. And I used to do a talk, The Amazing Paralyzed Woman. I'm very well aware of it. Like sometimes you get stuck, but we all need to get off that bubble. And I'm doing it again. I'm doing the challenge to everybody who's out there. I challenge you to try one telehealth therapy. And then you can call me up. I'll even leave my phone number here if you want. You can call me up and yell at me, but nobody's going to call up and yell at me. I think you're going to be going, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that if I had a nickel for every time a parent said to me, Shannon, I'm so glad you pushed me, I could pay for my son to go to college. Yeah. Right? So I'm pushing you. Pushing you. Now, we've got two separate questions here that are, I think, kind of interrelated. The first one is, I'm concerned about my 3.5-year-old grandson since his in-home ABA services were discontinued during the present health crisis. I am thinking of the possibility of moving in for a while, and what are your thoughts? And then the secondary question, and I think that these have a little bit to do with each other. Somebody asked the question, can I start at CARD now? I watched the Heroes last week in my house with my 3-year-old who was getting therapy from another company, but it all stopped with the quarantine. My therapists were never like the ones I saw you interview. Where do I sign up? So I think there's some overlap there for things that we're going to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whenever possible, we should do whatever we can so that our kids' programs are not discontinued or interrupted, because as all of our viewers know, our kids depend on the consistency of the program. As I've said many times, I think during this time frame where there's a lot of fear, The parents, the children depend on the familiarity of their therapists and their routines, and those types of things really calm them down and help them maintain their skills. So, all of the research points to the fact that with autism, it's very important when you're in a program not to discontinue. Even we are usually outside of this whole COVID-19 thing. We're always concerned when families go for lengthy holidays, for instance, and the child comes back and there's a certain level of regression of skills, which basically means the child has forgotten some things because they were not fluent in it. And so then we have to go back and kind of just like refresh those things. It's not a massive thing. It's not, life or death, but it is important because we're wasting time and reteaching things that could have been maintained. So right now, during this 2-month period, I got at the very beginning of March, when we started to move into telehealth, the instruction we gave to people at CARD was kind of, let's make sure that we take advantage of this period of time and let's do some of the things that we usually don't have a lot of time to do. For instance, maintenance, which means focusing on maintaining a lot of the skills that are kind of not always practiced, because we're doing acquisition, we're doing new skills. Generalization, which means doing activities that involve the home, so that the child is using a lot of their skills in the home. And finally, of course, parent training, which is our opportunity to provide more training to our families. So those are the things that are pretty easy to do right now during this phase, and I think are the things we should all be focused on, because everybody knows, when we're back to work, physical work, it just, none of the parents have time. It becomes really, really hard for us to do parent training. We don't have as much access to your home. It's all kinds of stuff become a little bit more difficult. So to answer the first question, I know all of our resources are limited, right? Everybody's resources are limited, but if you can do some work with the child yourself, certainly IBT, Institute for Behavior Training, provides all the training for you. Skills, we built skills for parents who did not have access to ABA providers. So using IBT and skills, the whole concept when I built those was, I want to empower parents who don't have access to providers to be able to do this kind of therapy themselves. So yes, certainly a lot of parents who, if you don't have an ABA provider who's giving you any kind of service right now, you can certainly try to do as much of it as you can yourself. Having said that, yes, we are taking patients. In fact, we have a lot of intakes right now in our admissions department, and we're very proud of our therapists. Thank you very much for recognizing that they're special people. They really, really are, and it is incredible. I mean, not only we try our best to take care of them as much as we can, both financially and from a support perspective, and mentorship and training and continuing education and guidance and so on. But all that aside, it takes a really special person during this time where everyone is afraid and concerned and focused on their own issues, to be focused on someone else, And so, like, the whole thing about these amazing heroes is that every single day they don't worry about themselves, they worry about your children. And I love that, and I think that is what we're all about, is giving back, helping others, making sure that you're focused on what you can do to make the world better. So yeah, we'd love to have you join us at CARD. And hopefully soon, we will even be back in our centers and operating under normal conditions. But Shannon, again, for the parents who doesn't have face-to-face therapy, you should be asking whoever your provider is whether or not they provide telehealth. Now, I know that a lot of other providers have not really started to provide telehealth therapy. I'm not sure if they just don't have the ability to modify programs in order to do that. I don't know why they're not, but you should ask anyway and see if they can do that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to acknowledge, Card, that it's like a factory having to retool. You know, I love watching these, like that the Coors factory decided that they were going to stop making beer and that they were going to put out hand sanitizer. And that wasn't a 5 second change. Like they had to stop and think, okay, how would we make hand sanitizer? How
Right.
can we be of service here? And what I found amazing was that in the first weeks of this all starting to happen is that CARD took their biggest and brightest, clinicians, including you, and everybody like powwowed. And I saw people move mountains and create content and training and train a staff of people in how to do telehealth. It was something beautiful to behold. So and now it's all coming to fruition, and you saw some of those amazing people. So I love that Angel wrote in and said, because I got on my soapbox a little bit and said, I'm pushing you. And she said, I needed that. Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging, because sometimes we all need that swift kick, right, to get us moving. Okay, Johanny wants to know, how do we get the free daily classes on IBT? And I have the skinny on this.
Great.
Right now, if you go to ibehavioraltraining.com, and you want to go in the top, they have the part where it says community. So you click on that. Then you go from there to parents, get to the parent page, and scroll down and see all of the parent trainings. This week, every week, they have a different set of trainings that they're offering for free. This week, it is the challenging behavior section at home, challenging behavior at home. So you take any of those trainings that are on the subheading there and you put it in the cart. Then there is a code that you need to put in, and that code is case sensitive, and you need to be all capitals COVID, COVID -19. If that works correctly, then your cart will zero out and those trainings will be free for you. If it does not work for you, back up for a second, make sure that you are in the right area, because this week only, it is for the challenging behavior section. And if you have further difficulties, you can either reach out to me at s.penrod@autism-live.com, or you can reach directly out to the folks at IBT. And there's a how do we contact right there on their page. But the people who are doing these trainings are just loving them and saying that they're super duper helpful. Thank you so much. And I do want to say that too, for that grandma who was asking about, helping, that if she decides to go and move there, as you were saying, that's the same place, ibehavioraltraining.com. You can go and find more than just the challenging behavior, and we can all get up to speed on the things that we do to help our kiddos. It is scary. I talk often to therapists about how scary it is for a parent. That we look at them, Dr. Granpeesheh, and they are all younger and prettier than we are. And it appears that the therapists are magic with our kids. It's very intimidating. And I know for me as a mom, when Jem started getting therapy, I was so thrilled and relieved that therapists were coming, but I was also intimidated because he would do things for them that he wouldn't do for me. And I had the best of the best of the best because I had card therapists. So they helped me to not escape with my fear. They helped me to learn to do what they were doing in small increments so that I was empowered, so that I was like, okay, now you got to teach me everything you know, because now I know what your magic is. Now I got to know everything that you know. And I remember the day that my husband came home from work and was a little verklempt and almost in tears. And he said, I don't get it. Why when Charity says to him, come here, he comes and it's no big deal. And how come when you say, it's time to clean up, he automatically does it. But when I talk to him, he breezes right past me. This is my 3-year-old, right? And my husband was emotional. And I said to him, you better learn this, right? Not my best spouse moment. But I went to my supervisor and said, how do we help him? And she said, okay, we're going to do some more, at the time we called it parent training. Now we call it caregiver collaboration. But she did one-on-one with him to help him. And that's also available to parents as well right now, that caregiver collaboration. And it's available via telehealth. So I want to just encourage people, it's okay to be afraid. It's not okay to just stop. This is not the time for stopping.
In fact, Shannon, I think one of the questions from today I noticed had to do with a parent. Do you have the one that starts with help? I'm getting
Yes. Yeah. Let me read you that one.
Thank you.
Help. I'm getting therapy for my son during the quarantine, both in the home and telehealth. Therapy is going well, but when therapy is over, he unleashes all of his frustration on me. He hits me, no one else. I'm exhausted and demoralized. I don't want to stop therapy, but I can't do this much longer. There is no end in sight and I get no break. And we just want to send a hug to that caregiver.
Absolutely.
I don't want to assume it's mom.
And the reason that I brought that up is because it just is very similar to what you were talking about. A lot of times our children will act out with us only. And I know you have a lot of stories about that as well. And I just want to say that please don't give up. This has nothing to do with the therapy that's occurring. In fact, if you stop the therapy, there will be another reason the next day where he will lash out at you again. So it's not about the therapy. It's about the fact that he's not able to express himself verbally or gets attention from you, negative attention possibly in some way or another, and or has just learned that this is a behavior that gets him access to something he wants. So please do not stop the therapy. What I ask of you to do is to discuss this with your supervisor immediately and to ask them to do a variety of things. One is to spend some time with you, maybe observing this happen. You can easily make the supervisor switch on to Zoom when the therapy session is over so that they can actually see this happening. They can help identify the function of the behavior, which means why is the child doing it? What is maintaining the behavior? What is instigating it? And then the supervisor will tell you exactly how to change your behavior, your response, the circumstances in the room, all of that, so that this behavior doesn't occur. And they will show you how to prevent this from happening in all different types of circumstances. So please do that. I also want to say that a lot of our supervisors and assistant supervisors are coming to the homes still. So we are happy to also show that. But I mean, I think it's one of those situations where it's great because your supervisor can be on screen and actually see what's going on.
Muted. It's so hard when you're getting hit.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And it's I think there's a special ring of hell that is just for when you're the only one being hit.
Oh, yeah.
Because you begin to feel upside down. You begin to feel like, well, it's clearly me.
Yeah.
So I must be doing something really, really wrong.
Right.
Which is the upside down of that, right? You don't have eyes in the back of your head, so you don't have the ability to see 360, right? As much as we think when we birth a child that we're going to be given the knowledge of everything and the ability to see 360, it doesn't work that way. And I know that for me and many other parents report that you get so upside down and you get worried that you don't want to tell people because you don't want people to think your child is a monster. You don't want them to judge you or the child. So we start to keep things secret sometimes. That's upside down. And then sometimes it can get so bad that we feel like maybe we deserve it and that it's something that just needs to happen. And it's our way of letting our child be, we're our child's punching bag and that maybe they need that. That's all upside down. And you guys can hear me say that and you know that for yourself, but I can tell you that when you're in it, sometimes that sounds perfectly rational. And if there's anybody who's listening that feels like, yep, that's where I am, today's the day you got to reach out for help and get help in whatever way that it can. I realize it's, more difficult than usual, but get help. You say that you're doing telehealth, which means that you've got a supervisor. And as Dr. Granpeesheh said, just reach out and say, just what you said there.
And Shannon, I've also heard from parents that there's a lot of guilt associated with it as well, because they get angry, right? And it's a very, very normal reaction to get angry when someone is hitting you. It doesn't matter if it's your child or whatever else. It is a very normal reaction to get angry. And that, I think, is one of the predominant things that I hear from parents, is that I got angry at him and I feel really a lot of shame and embarrassment about that, and guilt. And that kind of stuff is where, I really just want to empower the parents and teach them what they can do so that they can remain in control, and you never ever will get angry again, and you'll therefore never ever feel that guilt or shame from it as well. That's really important.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. And it is the thing, I think, that most parents, the guilt that they carry, that we're all told, well, I'm the adult and he's the child and I should be able to, well, yes, but let's fix the problem and then heal ourselves and move on, because it can be much better than it is right now. And several people are writing in and saying that they're sending you hugs and love to that caregiver, because you need all the support in the world. And I think a lot of us have been in some semblance of where you are, just not maybe in this emergency. So I'm glad that you're still reaching out and not hiding. And hopefully your supervisor is going to be able to help you a lot. I also want to cycle back to the thing about the behavioral training, that I'm told that you can take any of the ones in that section that's challenging behavior. You can take absolutely any of them, fill your cart. If you've got all the right ones, it'll zero out. If you don't, if it's not zeroing out, go back and take process, but it's under the heading of challenging behavior. And I have had parents confirm for me that it was working. Okay, Dr. Grandpichet, next question. I have a 6-year-old, have been following ABA since he was 2. He has made great strides. Only thing he is not able to catch up with is language fluency. With him now more able to tell me, I think he has aphasia, which is choosing right words and good language. How can we help him with this in terms of ABA? He gets frustrated easily, not able to put across his point. Also, this is a big turnoff for social skills and peer relations.
Yep, great question. And what a very, very involved and observant parent. Wonderful. So I would suggest, if this was a child that I was treating, I would suggest using visuals as an organization system for him. And let me back up a little bit and explain what I mean. So we often are, when we learn things, when you're learning language at a typical level or rate, you have the opportunity as a child to classify things in your brain in a way that retrieval is organized and it's possible. So for example, you learn, I don't know, let's say labels of objects, right? And they're in the form of what we call commands or requests first. And that is usually what happens when you're very young, 1, 2 years old. And these are like juice, mommy, toy, out, whatever, those types of things. And then gradually you'll learn, let's say, actions, and you'll start saying things like want this or running or whatever it is. And then you'll start to put sentences together, words together, and then you'll start like making those sentences a little bit more descriptive by putting in descriptors like big truck or colors or so on and so forth. And that's a normal process that occurs. And every time you learn something over a period of time, it's organized in a place so that next time when you want to think about, oh, what kind of truck was that? Big, or the adjectives that describe it can readily be retrieved. And it's only because when you learn them in a sequence. And so it was easy to kind of categorize them like a library. In other words, you had time to place them in a library that has a really good system of classification, okay? With our kids, they learn tons and tons of stuff in a very, very short period of time. So it's not as organized. Think of a library that doesn't have a classification system. So there's thousands of objects and actions and whatever else in there, but they're not connected to each other and organized in a way where retrieval is easy. So one of the ways that I found is very helpful for our kids who can't put their thoughts into vocalization or verbalization well is writing or keywording. So if your child can either write or teach him to type, any kind of written material allows us to organize much, much better. So, depending on the functioning level of your child, I would either give him a lot of cut out words and have them put it in sequence, or I would use an actual computer and teach him to write things, move words around. And that will really, really help him figure out how to organize his thoughts before they come out. You might also want to color code words. One of the things that we do, there's a lot of programs like this in Skills. We color code things. So like, for instance, depending on what his issue is, sometimes we will put in like, okay, all the verbs are in red, all the adjectives are in green. Something that allows the child to kind of pull from a series of, let's say, here's a bunch of like subjects, and here's a bunch of verbs, and here's a bunch of direct objects, and now I'm going to pull them and make a sentence. And that kind of activity really just helps the child become a lot more fluent in their thinking. The more they can develop and design sentences in writing, the faster their thinking will be, and it'll translate to more fluent vocalization. Now, that aside, you can also just be practicing fluency. And fluency is seed. So a lot of the fluency lessons that we do are timed. So you should start with something very, very easy so that it is rewarding. You do not want your child failing. And maybe just, labels of objects or 3-word descriptors of it is truck, it is car, it is whatever. Make it a little bit longer, like, what is this? It's a red truck. What size is it? That kind of stuff, like very basic stuff until you get to more advanced language. But time the response. Try to get a baseline, figure out how long it takes for your child to respond, and then try to speed that up. Now, that's the second idea. The third thing I want you to pay attention to is sometimes with our kids, they have a hard time with verbalizing something because their mind is distracted. Not because it's a fluency issue, but because their mind is somewhere else. If that's the case, then it's a whole different procedure, because then we're talking about distractibility. So, make sure that this is a fluency issue, and if it is, that those were some of the ways that you can help improve it.
Okay, coming back to you. I also want to toss in here, because we had a question that came in the night of, I'm always asking people, what do you need? What would help you? What kinds of things do you want us to cover? What topics are you interested in? Somebody had written in and said that they're requesting to highlight biomedical intervention in autism spectrum disorders. And I know that this is a particular area that we really want to be talking more about, and I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that. But since this person asked this question, my question to you, me not being a doctor and not being a biomedical expert, but a lot of parents have talked about when they pair good ABA with some kids, not all kids, with methyl B12 shots, and that the language goes when that happens for some kids. I want to make sure that I put asterisks here, because it's not for everybody, and obviously I'm not a doctor. But is that potentially something that they want to take a look at?
Sure. I mean, so yes, I'm very pro biomedical interventions. I have been very involved with biomedical interventions. I'm, as you know, developing a lot of training for our BCBAs at CART so that they can always understand and assist the parents when they're carrying out biomedical or dietary interventions. So first, let's start with that, because a lot of ABA folks are not pro biomedical. I'm not one of those people. That being said, like everything else, it's just very, very important that we individualize the intervention to the child. Even with ABA, I mean, if you look at it, there's no way I'm doing the same program with 2 kids, right? So that's the biggest part of treating kids with autism or individuals on the autism spectrum, is recognizing how different they each are from each other and making the intervention fit the individual. So with biomedical intervention, as you said, Shannon, some people respond to the methyl B12 shots, others do not at all. And let me tell you, it's not an easy protocol. It is multiple shots a day, and that's pretty difficult to do. So I really would recommend that you don't start with testing out those types of things. Fortunately, with biomedical, you can do a variety of assessments, evaluations, blood tests, urine tests, stool tests, all kinds of assessments that will help you identify exactly what the issue is. Yes, if your child is a low methylator, the methyl B12 might help. You need to see a physician who is an expert in this area. Right now, a lot of the folks who are doing these types of interventions are part of an organization called MAPS. So you can look up the MAPS doctors or MAPS trained doctors. These are the folks that used to be called DAN trained. The organization just changed. And essentially, you want to make sure that they're trained to be able to do the assessments and identify exactly what your child needs. There's a variety of things that make a big difference in language. Some kids do very well on antifungal medications. Other kids just need various diets so that they are not exposed to the things that are acting like allergens in their system. I mean, there's so more than I could list here. There's very useful medications for some of our kids. Sometimes with our kids, it's just a matter of doing treatment to reduce the gastrointestinal inflammation, so then they feel better, so then they learn better. Sometimes it's a matter of dealing with kids who don't sleep, so their sleep improves, then they learn better. It's just, you know, treating the whole person has to do with figuring out what are the things that make this child uncomfortable, what are the things that are hurting, what are the things that distract the child, how do I allow the child, what do I have to do to help my child pay better attention and focus. And then the ABA comes in and is more effective, because then we can teach the child more readily.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I love this next question. Are there executive function classes for parents and also classes for kids? I'm undiagnosed, but I'm 1000% that I'm on the autism spectrum. My kids just became diagnosed a few months ago. I love this. I love this parent who's saying, okay, I've got the diagnosis for my kids, but I 1000% see this in myself. And that's fairly common. We've had a lot of people on the show that didn't get their diagnosis until after their kids did. And I love that you have something great for this parent.
Well, I mean, I fully agree that it's funny, because when we were writing a lot of the lessons for executive functions, we all kind of felt like, oh, that would be great practice for me. A lot of these lessons in executive functions have to do with things like, you know, being better at seeing other people's perspective, being able to have what we call cognitive fluency, or ability to go back and forth between two cognitive concepts. There's lots of stuff there that is useful. We do have a ton of ideas and lessons on skills in the executive function curriculum. It's, you know, go through those first. I would start there, because some of those might just be great exercises for you and for your child, obviously. Don't stop because you think there's an age limit on those. They're there isn't an age limit on those. If you go also online, there's hundreds of activities just for executive functions, because there's a lot of tests, psychological tests that were made for this purpose alone. For example, there's a test that takes you back and forth between numbers and colors. It's called the Stroop test. There's a lot of, and when you look at these tests, they all, you can practice the activity in the test, and your executive functions will actually speed up as well. Were you thinking of something else, Shannon?
Oh, I was totally thinking of skills. Because I remember when I first got to look at skills, and I was just trying to learn everything that I could about skills, right? And so I found myself being drawn to the executive functions curriculum, and I found myself just reading through the lessons.
Oh, yeah.
And part of the reason why I was reading through the lessons, I was like, ooh, I need to be better at this. Right. And then I go on to the so there's this skill, and then it builds onto this, and I go, oh, that's where it falls apart for me. And then I would think, oh, you know what this is, that executive functions curriculum? It's like the best personal coach that we all need to be successful in our lives.
Yeah.
It's because, we're all, in order to be successful at the things that we want to do, it's like, well, first I got to do this, and then I got to do this, and then I got to see if it's working, and then I got to change the direction because it's not working, and then I got to do this. I mean, think about it. That's every day for all of us, right? And this COVID thing, it's a new executive function hurdle, right? And we need to be doing all of these things to check in. And if, you might be somebody who's great at executing, but planning is not your thing, and then it all, you might have this great thing that you could do, but it didn't get planned, so it didn't happen. Or you could be a great planner, but you can't execute. Or you've got all those pieces, but you don't know how to fix a problem when it comes up, recognize it and go, this isn't working. And I just loved that executive function curriculum. And I would read a different thing every day and get really excited. And I feel like I'm a better person for having read through it. Not even done the exercises, just a better person for having read through it. And I think I'm a better parent for having read through it. And that's without even doing anything but reading. So I get excited about the executive functions curriculum and skills. I think.
Absolutely.
And, I used to teach 7th grade. And 7th grade is a very scary time. It's that period of time in which the kids, their bodies are changing, and their brain isn't catching up with it, and they really don't understand how often they have to bathe, and they don't understand how they have to talk with other people. It's a really pivotal year. And often when I was teaching 7th grade, I would have to stop what I was supposed to be teaching and teach life things. And I remember reading that executive function curriculum and thinking, if every 7th grader in the world had access to this, our world would be a better place. We would have happier people. They would, perform better in high school, be more prepared for college, be more prepared for the real world. So yeah, I get a little excited about the executive functions curriculum. And I think it's going to be really exciting for that parent, for themselves, and to think about it with their kiddos. And for those of you who are thinking, oh, well, it's this thing that's just for adults, it isn't, because there are things that are appropriate in there for a 2.5-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, the first actual overt act of executive function starts around 9 months. And that is when it's joint attention. So this is when you look at when the infant, you've seen, let's say an infant is in the mother's lap, nursing perhaps, and the infant will look at the mother's eyes and will track where the mother's eyes are looking. And that is the first overt behavior that indicates the infant is looking and wondering, what are you looking at? And then they will track it. And that is what we classify as theory of mind. Theory of mind is a precursor to joint attention. And then the second act, Shannon, which is very important for our kids, is pointing. And pointing, of course, happens around age 1 or 9 months to 12 months. And that is the phase where It's the reverse joint attention, right? So you don't know what I want, but I'm going to point to it. And as you know, a lot of times that skill does not develop in kids with autism because of the theory of mind deficit, where they think you know everything that's in their mind. And so, it starts a very, very early on, and it does go through the lifetime.
It makes me emotional because you know what I call that whole area of skills? I call it the Disneyland factor, because I could never quite put my finger on what was going on with my son, because in the beginning, my son had language. Eventually, he lost all of his language. But I remember us taking him to Disneyland when he was like 2, right before he got diagnosed. And I was like, I just couldn't put my finger on it. I was like, what is it that's different with my child? And I didn't want to use the word wrong. I still don't want to use the word wrong, but there was something that wasn't happening. There was something that was missing, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And it was exactly this. And to this day, when we go to Disneyland, and I love to go to Disneyland, at some point my husband and son will get on a ride I can't ride because I get sick on the tram, right? I can't do the merry-go-round. So I'll sit there and I'll people watch, and there's always the mom or the dad walking with the little kid, and they're engaged in this, where the mom will look and see the Star Trooper and she'll have a reaction, and the child looks at the Star Trooper too. And then they look at each other and they're like, it's the Star Trooper. Or then the child points and goes, they don't have the words, but they go, because it's Goofy over there. And mom looks and goes, it's Goofy, and looks at the child. And the child grins at the mom. That's what I didn't have. Yeah, that was the thing I didn't have.
Right. And it's so great the way you just described it, because it shows the amount of social connection that ability produces, and it's so important.
And, that thing, if you pull that out of the equation, it's what I had, which was not nothing. But I can tell everybody as a parent that when we started working with Card right after his 3rd birthday, and Card started building that in, that it was about a week and a half after we started with Card that we got to go to a Dodger game. And I was terrified because I couldn't walk down the sidewalk with him. He wouldn't hold my hand. And I thought, oh, we're going to go to Dodger Stadium. And what is this going to be? And he's not going to attend to the baseball thing. But Card had already started working with that. And a week and a half in, right? So it wasn't vastly different, but it was enough different that we got to enjoy being there with him. And that there were moments of that joint attention, and it filled me with hope, to where I thought, okay, we might come out of this okay. And let me just tell you, spoiler alert, we did. Now I can go everywhere in the world with him, and he, yaks at me and tells me how the world is and how it should be, and how he's going to make it that way, and isn't my life luscious because of it. But it all started with me not knowing if we were ever going to have that. Okay, so next question here. Somebody said, what should we do for visual stimming or self-stimulatory behavior?
Yeah, there's just so many different types of visual self-stimulatory behavior that unfortunately I can't really give you too much guidance about what to do in your particular case, except for just in general, any kind of visual self-stimulatory, any kind of self-stimulatory behavior tends to take away from the child's ability to pay attention to the things that are important for learning. So the reason that we try to control, limit, or eliminate altogether self-stimulatory behavior is because when the child is engaged in that behavior, they're not learning from anything else. They're not observing anything else. So oftentimes with visual, there's so many different kinds of visual. There are kids who will do various things in front of their eyes in order to be able to look at the tracking of it. There are kids who will look at things from the corner of their eyes, and that's a whole different issue of their retina and how that works. There are kids who will be looking at shadows. They will be looking at lines that are on objects, or they're not even lines, but they see certain things as lines in their environment. So bottom line is you need to identify what it is that the child is seeking out in terms of self-stimulation or calming. I always found that the fact that we call it self-stimulatory is a little weird, because in my mind, a lot of the self-stimulatory behaviors are actually self-calming, self-soothing behaviors. So you need to kind of figure out what is the topography, the type of behavior, and what is the child getting out of it. And then often you can try to, as long as you can get the child's attention onto the object or the thing that you're trying to teach, then I wouldn't worry about that too much. If the self-stimulatory behavior becomes so pervasive that you really cannot get the child to focus, that's when you need to start blocking it as much as possible, replacing it with something that's a little bit more adaptive or functional, or at minimum, restricting it to a particular time. So if the child, I've had kids where like they would not be able to focus on anything else other than looking at leaves on trees. So obviously we were very, very cautious about teaching outside, because inside it was one thing. Even if the child sat by a window, they were distracted. So we were very careful about the time that we allowed that behavior to occur. And honestly, Shannon, in order to maintain a low rate of that need for the self-stimulatory behavior, we had to give our child other visual tracking exercises, other visual types of stimulation that could replace that need. But at least we had it under control at this point, and therefore we could use the child's time to teach. But
Wonderful.
It is hard. Visual self-stimulatory is hard. I would really try to get a behavior analyst to help you and guide you through that.
Wonderful. I'm going to try to breeze through a bunch of questions here that we've got. The first one, how do you engage a 26-month-old in social play looking for ideas? Please. I love the comedian who does the thing about how long do we say the months for? Because I got to do the math on that. So that's somebody who's a little over 2 years old, 26 months, right? Okay.
And that's a wonderful age to be doing play activity, and we have tons of it in skills. I really, instead of just sitting here and naming them for you, I highly recommend that you look in skills. And obviously skills is age norm. So you would put in you would answer questions and it would identify that your child is 26 months and would help you select those particular lessons in play. It's a really, really good, strong curriculum, the play curriculum. I love it because there's not only lessons, but there's also steps of guiding you through play. Play development is very interesting. It's kind of has a process where you go age-wise. You go through sort of imitative play and then functional play and then imaginative play and so on, and it takes you through and it shows you all of those. So and then also it allows you to select, because sometimes, like, let's say the child is very much into building and that kind of play, and another child might be more into acting and that kind of play. You'll have a huge variety in skills.
Okay, really quickly. So skillsforautism.com, and somebody wrote in and wanted to know, is there a specific name for the executive functioning curriculum? Yeah, it's the executive functioning curriculum, which is great. You don't have to look hard. And May says, do you have to be an RBT to work at CARD? I'm currently in the undergrad program to get my BCABA and applied in Texas. These lives motivated me to go back to school. Oh, these live shows. Got it. My son has autism.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
No, you do not have to be an RBT. We will get you to be an RBT if you'd like to. Our level 1 therapists are not RBT or BCAT, Board Certified Autism Technician. If you're thinking about becoming one or the other, I recommend you look at both and decide which one you prefer. Both of them are great. That becomes a level 2. If you get your BCABA, you become an associate supervisor, which is a much higher level. So, but you don't have to have any of those to start at CARD. We have a lot of people heading that way through their career with us. Wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we've only got 2 minutes here, but somebody wants to know, how do I get my 22-year-old son to eat a wider variety of food? He is now refusing foods he used to eat. It's not a texture issue.
Yeah. So it absolutely does not have to be a texture issue. It's very, very possible that he ate something at some point that made him feel bad, and now he's narrowing his scope of what he trusts in food. We have a lot of feeding programs that are fantastic. It's a shaping process. You basically start by requiring a very, very small portion of something that he does not want to eat, and then you allow the child to have as much of the other stuff that he does want to eat. And then over the course of time, you gradually increase the food items that the individual does not want, as you decrease the ones that are reinforcers. So you basically balance it out so that it ends up being an equal amount of kind of non-preferred and preferred foods. But it is a shaping procedure. I'm not sure if I'm sure there's training on feeding on IBT, Institute for Behavior Training. I don't know if our entire feeding curriculum is on skills. I'm not sure about that, but you know, any good BCBA should be able to guide you through a feeding program.
Absolutely. We're here at the last minute, so I want to take just a second here to thank Dr. Granpeesheh and talk a little bit about the rest of our week here. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to have Dr. Kerry Magro, who's going to be with us. He's a self-advocate. This is a young man who was diagnosed with autism as a child and had, you know, speech deficits. His family got him all the right kinds of therapy, and he is now Dr. Kerry Magro, international speaker, autism advocate. So we love it when he's here. He's got, I don't know, like 14 books. I'm exaggerating only slightly published. So you want to be here to talk with Kerry Magro tomorrow. And then on Friday for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, we have a filmmaker, Vana Thiero. She's an autism mom with 2 sons on the spectrum. She's just finishing her second documentary. The first documentary was My Thiero Boys. This one is Believing in Miracles in Spite of Autism. So you're really going to want to be, she always brings a spirited, bone honest conversation, Miss Thiero. So you're going to want to be there to see what Vana has to say to Nancy and I. All right. We are so thrilled that you guys are here with us, and keep on keeping on. I challenge you, try that telehealth and then write to me and let me know how it is. I'm open to whatever it is that you have to say. Dr. Granpeesheh, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Who is that woman in that opener? I don't recognize her anymore. That is, that is me 10 years ago, 9 years ago, I guess. Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. Yes, we have not changed the opener. And yes, I was a different person and I dyed my hair and I was younger and thinner. And it happens. It just happens. In any case, I love the music in it. You guys can see me now that I sort of rock out to the music. And I love looking at the pictures of the kiddos because those kiddos have grown up and are doing so well. And we've had a couple of them on the show. We should have all of them at some point. But anyway, in any case, I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from my house. I know it's a concept you're unfamiliar with. But the truth of the matter is you guys are getting so used to seeing people come from their house and checking out the tchotchkes behind them. I know. I need to change my tchotchkes up to make it more exciting. But I'm thrilled to be here with you. First I want to start by spreading some love. Guys, you're just doing so awesome. This COVID emergency, I know it's kicking everybody's keister on different days, right? And there are different things, like just when you think you have it all like on a level place and you go, okay, I might have this for 5 minutes, then, something new gets added into the mix, right? Or the time gets extended. But I gotta say, while I had concerns for all of you, and I still do for our autism community, because there are extra things going on for you right now. And I know that, being cooped up in a place and especially not necessarily having access to all the resources that you normally have, it makes me worry for you. But I gotta say, I knew that you guys would be rock stars at this because you've already had to do this in your life. You've already had to go, oh, okay, all the rules just changed and we got to do this in a different way. So you guys rose to that occasion and you're rising to this. And I just want to be here to help you. We all here at Autism Live want to help you to rise to that occasion. So we're going to be with you live for the next hour. We've got a really inspirational show planned for you. Excited to be here with you guys and to hopefully be of service. Our number one mission here is to inspire and to give inspiration and information. That's what we're here for. And please don't mistake me for an expert or a mind reader. So that means is we have other experts come on the show and that you need to write to me and tell me what you need. If there's something in particular that you need, because otherwise I may not know. I likely won't know, right? Yes, I am an autism mom. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, but let's face it, every person with autism is different. And I'm still very much in the front row learning. And like a lot of you, it's like, we want to know more, right? And my son is his own person. He's not necessarily like you or someone that you love in your family. So don't assume that I know what you need, right? And tell me what's going on, and then let me help you to try to see if we can find something for you where you are. And that leads me to my next thing is, how do you connect with the show? And Traven here in a second will show you a wonderful graphic of the different ways that you can connect with the show. I want you to know that you can watch the show live in a lot of different places, and it's free in all the places that we are. If somebody is charging for us, it's not with our say so. Let's say that. But so here is a list of some of the different ways that you can connect with us. You see that we're live on Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube, and on our homepage, which is autism-live.com. Now, once we're done being live, you can still find the recordings on Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube, right? But you can also find the podcast of Autism Live on the other side. You can go to iTunes, and it's a free download. You can download either just sound, take us for a walk. Yes. Observe distance from people while you're doing it, but take us for a walk, take us for a car ride. Or you can listen to us on Spotify. You can listen on iHeartRadio or on Deezer. And again, don't forget, you can always find us at autism-live.com. Now, in each one of these different formats, there are different pluses and minuses, and we hope that you will access the way that is great for you. And if there's a way that you like to access information and podcasts, and it's not on this list, please bring it to our attention, because we love to add ways for people to view us. We don't want you to have to go searching, right? We want to be any place that you are, and we want to be free there. That's what we're trying to do. Now, some of these places are interactive and you can write us in questions. You can write in questions on Twitter, on Facebook, on Periscope, and on YouTube. And you absolutely can write into us on autism-live.com. I know many of you love our guest who's going to be on the show today. So if you can be writing in on any of those places. And we try to do our best to moderate the comments and to answer as many comments as we possibly can. But, you know, with our growing popularity, and I say that like, what a quality problem, right? The more people that watch, the more people that write in, we don't necessarily get to all of the comments in the live show. We try to catch up on them afterwards. We are behind, largely because we had Temple Grandin on, it's 2 weeks ago today, and we're still catching up because so many people wrote in, and we like to make sure that we connect with as many people as we possibly can. So please be patient with us. We're doing the level best that we can, just like you are, right? I do want to point out that on our homepage, autism-live.com, there is a chat button at the very bottom of the page. If you click the chat, then it opens up a little box and you are able to have a conversation with me. I have that one on a separate iPad over here on a screen just to the side over here that you guys can't see, so that I can moderate the comments there. So, and then Traven helps me during the show to send me comments from the Facebook and the YouTube. So that's a wonderful thing. Like, for instance, Emma, I want to know if I can go home to mom's as I'm struggling here on my own. And I'm sending you a hug, Emma. And I'm going to tell you that I don't know what your circumstances are in terms of what your health is and what your mom's health is. So I want you to reach out to whoever is the person that you trust in your life to have a conversation with them about both your health and your mom's health and what exposures you both have had and what risks you both have, to see if that's something that works out. And obviously, please speak with your mom to see how she feels about that as well. But it is hard on your own. And I want you to know we're here with you, and glad that you're here with us. And it is hard on your own. I keep thinking about all the people that are in their homes alone and don't have somebody else with them, because I think I would have lost my marbles if it weren't for my husband and my son. I am, quarantined with my two favorite people. And I can't imagine what it would be like if you're away from someone you care about, or if you are just isolated. It'd be a tough, tough time. So please, thank you for reaching out to us, Emma. And please reach out to your mom and somebody you trust that knows your circumstances, who can help you to make the decision about whether this is right for you and right for your mom. We also are saying hi to Jana. And Jana, am I saying it right, or is it Yana? I always wonder whenever you write into us. So in any case, see, there's an example. We have people writing in right now. All right. I do like to tell you a couple of things at the start of the show. And one of them is that we do have lots of experts on the show. Boy, have I got an expert for you today. Woo! He ticks all of the boxes, right? But I just always like to remind you, we have lots of experts. I'm not one of them. I'm a mom, and, you're talking about moms. I'm a mom, and I'm a proud mom. And I'm a former school teacher, and I am someone who cares deeply that you guys get the help and the resources that you need. That's what my credentials are, right? And yes, I've been doing this for over 10 years now, hosting shows about autism. So I've interviewed a lot of people. Yes, I'm opinionated. Yes, I consider it an informed opinion, but not everybody agrees with me, and that's okay, right? It is what it is. But please don't mistake my opinion for expert advice, because it is not. And that's all I have to say about that. Also, want to say to you that we here on Autism Live welcome the entire greater autism community. And what I mean by that is, first and foremost, we welcome individuals who are on the autism spectrum, of course, right? The show is called Autism Live, and we want to be a resource and information and a place for those individuals to have a voice, right? Of course. But we also welcome everyone who loves those people. That's the moms and the dads and the brothers and the sisters and the cousins and the grandparents. And by the way, the ABA therapists and the OTs and the SLPs and all of those people, because we want to help those people to get to the resources and information that they need also, so that they can better serve those loved ones that they have. By the way, I left out spouses, we love all of those people. So just wanted to be clear about what we're doing here and why we're doing it. Now, on Thursday, we like to start the show with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the hey nani are those experts talking about and why? Why do they have to make it so difficult? I always say we give you the actual definition first, then whenever possible, I make fun of it because I am who I am. And what else are you going to do with it, right? And then we give you a working definition, which we hope will start the very beginnings of the understanding. Don't expect to get it the first time because most of us don't, right? But that's why we go back over them. And what you'll see is that eventually you'll be someplace in your life and the circumstance will come up and you'll go, oh, I think it's that thing. That's that thing. Oh, what was the name of that? It's that. That's what that is. And it'll all start to make sense, right? Okay, we just do it a little bit at a time so that we don't have to get overwhelmed because we're overwhelmed enough. All right, you can see that our jargon term for today is SLP. Welcome to the land of alphabet, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you go crazy sometimes? And now with all the text things, this is how old I am. My husband and I have to Google all the things that come with the text, when people, I know LOL and those, but now there's a bunch of them. I don't know what they mean and I have to Google them. It's sad state. But for autism, sometimes it's equally as overwhelming, right? So what on earth is an SLP? Let's take a look at our actual definition and see what there is. So they're not much to make fun here. So an SLP stands for a speech and language pathologist. Woohoo! Why couldn't we just say that? Because it takes too long. That's why. So they call it the SLP. And you'll especially hear this when your child is school aged. Everybody will be constantly talking about, well, the SLP said this, and the SLP wants to do that, and the SLP this. But let's take a look at our working definition for SLP to see if we can't put this in proper context of what are we talking about with an SLP when we're talking about an autism diagnosis. An SLP is a person who works on speech production, articulation, and social communication. All right, now you probably are like, oh, that sort of made sense. I kind of knew that, but I want to be really particular here because a lot of times we lump speech into one big category and we say, oh, well, so-and-so is verbal, nonverbal, talking, not talking, right? But there's all these nuances to it, right? And we need to identify what the issues are as we're working on them. For instance, and we want to know this so that we can be talking with our SLP about what we want to accomplish, right? For some of our kids, especially our kids who have apraxia, but kids who don't have apraxia too, it's the actual being able to get the sound out. You watch somebody who has apraxia and you can see that they want to say the word, but it is not there, the connection to the brain and the connection to the muscles that do it, it isn't connecting. It's not firing right. And it's very, very frustrating. So we want to make sure that a person has the mechanics and that we want to be working on it for them to be able to produce the sounds, right? And by the way, there can be other issues besides the apraxia. Sometimes our kids just have not developed the musculature or the habits that come with producing sound. We were talking with Dr. Grambichet the other day about, being able to blow, that when you and I say B and P, we're pushing air through our lips. It's called a stop plosive, that the lips go together and there's a P of air that goes through them, right? And some of our kids just don't pick that up on their own. And so we actually need to work on that kind of thing. So that's the production side of it. But then there's the articulation part of it, which is, we all, to some degree, are working on articulation, right? But for a kiddo who's gone through all the machinations to be able to produce the sound, to be able to say something, to request, say, a cookie, right? Because that's what they want. And what we want is to be developing that speech and have that be reinforcing for them, so that if they say cookie, that they get a cookie, right? Because that fosters more speech. But there's nothing more frustrating for a kid who's gone through all the work to be able to produce the sound, and then they say it and nobody understands it. Right? And some of you right now are sitting there going, uh-oh, this is my kiddo, right? You might have a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old that you understand, that you get, you totally know what they're saying, but nobody else does. And that's a big old drag, because we get into the next thing, which is social communication, that if I don't have the ability to communicate the way you can receive communication, we're going to have a hitch in our whole social communication. This is, we were sort of talking about the other day, somebody was asking about sign language, and I love sign language. And my favorite thing with these press conferences that we've been having is to get to see all these amazing signers who are interpreters who are signing. And it's like I'm determined that I'm going to learn sign language, and I'm going to start it during this COVID period of time. But the truth is that the vast majority of the population does not understand sign language. So, it's frustrating for a person who knows sign language and that's their method of communication. If they're speaking to someone, it's like being somebody who only speaks Italian and you are in Russia, right? You're going to have difficulty with social communication and getting the things that you need. But there's a whole area of social communication that's nuanced. That isn't just how you produce sound and how you articulate it. It's understanding the give and take in conversation. It's understanding when the person is looking away that they're disinterested. It's understanding the facial expressions on somebody, whether somebody is bored or angry or upset, right? There are a whole bunch of nuances to social communication. So when you or your child are working with an SLP and you're thinking about what are the things that are preventing this individual or me from being able to do the things I want to do, a lot of times people just think of one thing here with an SLP, but the truth is that a good SLP can work with you on all of these things. And that's when things really get rocking. So there's our jargon for today. Okay, we always have a question for you. And this question, I put it in days ago, and I really wanted to change it. But that's okay. I'm going to ask this question sometime next week. But this is perfectly fine. What is the best part of your day? We asked you yesterday, what's the hardest part? Now I want to know, what is the best part of your day? Write in and tell me on Facebook or YouTube or any of the ways, or on the live feature, and tell me what the best part of your day is. Because, claim it, name it, and claim it. Okay. Look who we have on the show today. It's very exciting for me. We love some Kerry Magro here. And excuse me, Dr. Kerry Magro. He has been being on the show, I want to say, for 9 years, like since we started. We've had Kerry Magro. I've yet to meet Kerry in person. I don't know how that could possibly be true. I feel like I've watched him grow up. The first time that he was on this show, I think he was maybe a junior or a senior in college, getting ready to graduate. And now he's Dr. Kerry Magro. So I think, is he with us in the waiting room? I believe. Oh, okay. Well, I'll come back to that. But is Kerry with us in the waiting room, Traven? If he is, go ahead and put him in here with us so that we can start to talk to Kerry. Kerry is a remarkable author, speaker, advocate, and I feel like he's one of the bright shining lights in, let's have him come in. Have him join us here, Traven. Kerry, can you hear me? I'm just going to keep talking about him because I do think he's one of the bright shining lights in the autism. There he is, but you're on your side. Can we possibly flip you? Look at you with your beanie, looking all cute. Can you, I think that you can hear me, but can you undo your mic so that we can hear you? We might just have to have him sideways, but then I'll turn Hi, Kerry. There you are. I can't hear you yet. So we're going to work on that for a second, but I'm going to keep talking about you and how fabulous. So Kerry has written several books, and I'm telling you, if you are looking for something to do, hey,
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, but I'm getting a little bit of echo. So we're going to work on that for a second, but I'm going to keep talking. Oh, somewhere on your computer, you're playing the live show. So you just need to stop wherever that is. That's why I'm getting a little bit of a lag.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Is this better?
It's so much better. Look at how cute you are in your beanie, Kerry. Look at you. Excuse me, Dr. Magro.
Yes. As of last May. May.
I think that's the last time you were on the show. And it was like I think it was the first day that you had actually had your degree conferred upon you. And so I think we were the first one to be able to call you Dr. Magro, but it's still new to me, yes, relatively.
It's new to me as well. But it's been quite a year. Being the 1-year anniversary next month of once I graduated. So it's still surreal to me, and it's just it's been an incredible year.
Kerry, we love you. I was just saying, you're just such a bright light in the autism community. You're always a positive influence. You are such a role model for so many of our young people. And I think you give so many parents so much hope. The first time that you were ever on the show, I was saying that I think you were a junior or a senior getting ready to graduate from college. And you were so well-spoken. And you were like, I don't know, peanut butter and butter pecan ice cream mixed together. You were just luscious. And that we all couldn't stop talking about you for the longest time. We were like, this young man. And, you know, I prefer to let you tell your story about, you know, how you came to be in the autism community. So tell your story, and then we're going to get the update on how you're working for HBO and working on Mrs. Fletcher and all the things you got going on. But tell your story. I'm gonna drop my camera out so people can see you better.
Oh yeah. So I have had the most amazing time, obviously, over the years getting to know Shannon and Autism Live. But I was diagnosed with autism when I was 4. So I was diagnosed in 1992 when the numbers of autism were 1 in 1,000 in the United States. Today, autism is the fastest growing developmental disability. And I found from a very, very early age, when I was about 11, that I was on the autism spectrum. And it was very life-changing for me to learn about my autism diagnosis. And once I got to college, I went to Seton Hall University with sport management in mind, in the hopes of joining the sports world. Sports has always been one of my unique key interests growing up on the spectrum, but I realized there was such a need to talk about autism and disability in our community, so I changed career paths. So for the past 9 years, I've been a professionally certified speaker with the National Speakers Association, getting to travel across the globe, hitting the decade mark since I first became accredited, of getting the opportunity to speak around the country on autism, disability, and inclusion, and so many more topics, and getting to meet some amazing people, getting to work with amazing autism organizations like the Autism Society of America and the National Autism Association. And it's just been quite a journey, getting to write several books, and then also getting to work in our entertainment industry to make sure we're bringing a realistic portrayal of disability to our entertainment industry. But it was a lot of work. I love what you said about it's really a marathon. It's not a sprint. Because it took a while for me to overcome many of my obstacles, but I'm so glad to be here today and have the ability to share my voice and my story for the world to hear.
And moms and dads all over the world are swooning right now because you're so delicious. And we love, we love you, and we love what you say, and it gives us so much hope. So, but I want to talk about, what you were saying about working in the entertainment industry and how important it is for you to have accurate representation. So tell them a little bit about, what you've been doing. And this is not your first time you on Mrs. Fletcher.
Yeah.
You've done this for other things. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year, I had the amazing opportunity to be reached out by HBO. They were working on a project in Brooklyn, which focused on one of the characters in that show actually being a nonverbal boy on the autism spectrum. And I jumped on that opportunity right away because the projects that I worked on in the past, Joyful Noise and Jane Wants a Boyfriend, focused on two individuals with autism who were really, really verbal, had great communication abilities, and kind of got the same thing that I usually get, which is, oh, you have autism, but you don't look like you have autism. And this project was really great because it gave me the opportunity to focus on another side of our autism spectrum. And I got to consult. It was a limited series on HBO, which aired last fall. And being able to make sure that this character, which was just this 5-year-old boy, nonverbal boy on the autism spectrum, making it as realistic as humanly possible. So it made me reflect a lot about my early days of being nonverbal. Even though I said my first word when I was 3, I still have countless journals and articles from my family that I was able to review while thinking about this character and making it as realistic as possible.
And such an important thing. And I believe that people can still be watching Mrs. Fletcher because I think it's on HBO Demand and they should be watching it. Great show, great cast, and wonderful work that you did on that. And as you said, not the first time that you did that. But this is a very important thing that I'm glad that we're seeing some traction in the entertainment industry, that this, accuracy of representation is so important. And it's important in other fields too, but especially, it's called Autism Live, so we're going to talk about autism. And Kerry, I'm surprised, or maybe I just don't know. Have people approached you about doing some acting work and auditioning for some of the roles now that are out there?
It's really interesting because that has actually come up several times. I come from a background in theater when I was in high school, but it's not something that I actually considered for most of the projects that I was working on. But now I'm actually putting myself out there to potentially do a little bit more acting work. So we'll definitely see what's going on. I've received a few offers that I really can't talk too much about because I've signed NDAs, but hopefully there will be I might be able to talk about soon.
See, I started the show by saying I'm not psychic, but maybe I am, because that's a thing that should have happened. So, and I didn't know that it was happening, but I'm glad that I fished there. But we'll see, and you'll tell us later on when you can tell us. But Kerry, one of the things that we wanted to talk about with you, you are so amazing, and you post continuously, and I think people need to be following you because you have so many stories of hope, and you go and speak, and every time you speak you meet somebody, and I feel like you tell their story for them, which is just a really luscious thing to have in your feed on a regular basis. And Kerry is so modest, but he also has a wonderful charity that gives scholarships to young people on the spectrum going to college, and you can find out about all of that. So where should they go to be following you and to be getting that luscious feed of you meeting people and telling their stories?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started a nonprofit when I was actually just starting professional speaking for the first time, called KFM Making a Difference. So we've given out 68 scholarships for students with autism, partial scholarships with autism the past 8 years. So for people who want to stay in contact with me, I have a Facebook page called Kerry's Autism Journey, where one of the great things I get to do when we're not in the COVID-19 pandemic and I can actually go back out speaking is we bring a tripod and a camera and we sit down with self-advocates, and we sit down with them for 10 to 15 minutes at a time, and we ask them what they would like the world to know about them. So we have over 100 stories of self-advocates from across the globe who simply just want to share their stories. We believe that we've been given a huge opportunity to have a platform of over 200,000 Facebook followers and give an opportunity for these individuals to have a platform to share their stories was really important for me, because I still don't think we hear often enough from our self-advocate community from a large scale. I hear so many parents who have these large followings, and sometimes I get a little curious why self-advocates have as large of followings as many of the parents and experts in our field. And this is a big reason why I want to start that video series, to give them a little bit of my platform so they can continue to share their stories to as large an audience as possible. So Kerry's Autism Journey is my Facebook page. And then I also have all the Instagram, Twitter. I'm even on TikTok now, which I got peer pressured into. So
I got to check that out. And I got to say, I really appreciate what you were just talking about, because I get a fair amount of criticism here at Autism Live, and people will say to me, you know, you're a parent, you shouldn't be the person hosting this show. This should be hosted by somebody who's on the autism spectrum. And you know what? I don't disagree. But over the years, we have, you know, whenever possible, we have had self-advocates come in. We've offered them space, you know, to do their thing. And Kerry, I'm going to just put this out to you. Like, if you ever want space on Autism Live, it's yours. I remember years ago, before you became so big, we were asking you if you wanted to come in and do your own little segment on the show. But, you know, so in the meantime, I'm here. But if Kerry ever wants to take my place, I'm sure we can arrange for that to happen. But because I do feel like it's really important that we give self-advocates a voice. I find that a lot of times self-advocates are busy. And that's just the long and short of it. I think that sometimes as parents, we, when our kids are a little bit older, we have a little bit more free time because we're not doing the social thing that you guys are doing. And I think that that's part and parcel. You know, we've watched over the years, Autism Live has watched a lot of, you know, different people. You're the only person who's still doing a show. And you do a show. Talk a little bit about, I don't know if you're still doing it now, but you from time to time are doing your show.
Right. So a few years ago, I started a show called The Different is Beautiful Show, in the hopes of, again, with this platform of self-advocates, making people realize that different is very beautiful in many aspects. It goes off Temple Grandin's Different Not Less, who I admire so much in our autism community. So I haven't been doing that show, unfortunately, just because of how crazy my schedule has been with public speaking. But it's definitely something I'm going to definitely try to pick back up maybe in the future once I get off the road and start to settle down and hopefully a family at some point. So.
Well, all right. Since you brought that up,
I know.
I was thinking about all the things that I wanted to ask you, and I was like, oh, I should probably ask Kerry ahead of time. But one of the things that I keep thinking about in this COVID situation is all the young people and what the dating situation is like. And, you know, does this make you more want to move towards getting married and having babies? Or, you know, and you just brought it up, Kerry, so I'm just following up. Are there babies in the future?
So I'm dating, but I haven't. So I'm single and dating as of right now. So hopefully in the future that would be something. But I definitely would be open to it in the future. It's one of my life goals to get married, have a family. It's very interesting being in this whole COVID-19 situation in dating, because it's very dating apps. You lead up to it and then you're like, oh wait, we can't go out on dates, and then it becomes a virtual FaceTime, and it's very odd in many aspects. So,
but you know, I gotta say, Kerry, I said this at the beginning, there are gonna be some great love stories that come out of this, because I remember my grandparents having to write letters to each other, from my grandfather was at war and they had to write letters and they fell in love through letters. So I think that some really brilliant love stories are going to come out of this. And for people who are writers like you, there will be stories to tell, Kerry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Because I have many mentees who are young adults who are desperately looking for relationships and love. And I know that they are at home and their routines have kind of been changed a little bit. So I've just been telling them, just really be on the lookout. You never know who might be quarantined at home as well, who might be wanting to start a conversation with somebody as incredible as some of my mentees.
So, which brings up our next point, which you are someone who is available to mentor people. So if people are watching and they themselves are like, look, I need some help and support, or somebody who has a kiddo, what age range are you really wanting to mentor, Kerry?
So the age ranges that I've been working with most recently have been teenagers and young adults. So anywhere from the ages of 13 to 24 are usually the range that I've been working with, at least quite recently. But I've worked with older adults as well, even individuals who realize their autism and disability diagnosis in adulthood and want to understand more about the community. So it's been very mixed in nature, but 13 to 24, and they could go to my website at kerrymagro.com where all my contact information is at. And if they reach out to me, I would love to start a conversation, because one of the things we talk about the whole dating aspect, but we also talk about mock interviews, how to get into a post-secondary education, how to apply for scholarship aid, et cetera, and so forth. So a very wide.
There's a lot there to talk about. So in this, we've skirted around it in this COVID emergency with people secluding. I know that you've been a proponent that, there's some things that people can do to help themselves. Talk about the new normal and what you're advocating.
Yeah, no, I think first and foremost, we need our community to realize that even though this might seem like the new normal right now, we are going to go back to a place before physical distancing in the future. A lot of people who I've talked to are very just gloom and doom about all this. And from a mental health perspective, I think we need to realize that one day there will be a vaccine, one day there will be an opportunity for us to leave our homes, not have to worry about physical distancing, and to really be cognizant of that. Because right now it feels like a lot of people in our community are going stir crazy. I know I have gone that way several times in the past few weeks. So I think that's really important. But also really trying to find a daily schedule for themselves. That's really, really key in our community. We need every single young person, but also adults, to create that structure, to come to at least some place of normalcy. And that means having a visual schedule, but also educating younger children by social stories to tell them about COVID. I've been an advocate quite recently of making sure that individuals don't watch a lot of news right now to keep that very, very minimal in nature, because you hear a lot of statistics, a lot of facts from a lot of different people, and some of the times those things are not accurate. So making sure to keep watching the news to a minimal as well, while also building that daily schedule for yourself while this is going on.
Well, and that's all great advice, Kerry. And I wonder, because you brought up the whole thing about going stir crazy. And so I'm wondering, when you feel that way, what kinds of things are you doing to help yourself, aside, because the schedule's a great one, but what else in the moment when you're feeling antsy, what helps you?
Well, it's interesting that just a few minutes before our chat today, I was buying myself a miniature treadmill so I could work inside the house, which literally costs like $150 just so I could get my work in. Because I think one of the things that we unfortunately do is when we're in the house, we don't really think about the physical activity. And that's something that's so important for our mental health that sometimes we take for granted. Short-term and long-term retention boost once you have 30 minutes of cardio activity every single day. And it's the same thing with depression down when you're actually that. So I think that has been a really important aspect for me, especially since this quarantine began. But then also just making sure that I avoid a long period of screen time, because that can make anyone go crazy. Looking at the countless emails, looking at how many Zoom webinars I can put in place for our community during World Autism Month, trying to make sure that I take some time to actually read a book, actually talk on the phone with my family. All these things are tremendously important, so I don't deal with eye strain and dealing with too much activity when it comes to the screen time.
Yeah, even when it's productive screen time, like you were saying, like planning webinars, sometimes you got to step away from it, because I know it seems like there's two different worlds here that, you know, my husband is home for the quarantine and he's not working. Some of the time he works, like, you know, because he does voiceover stuff. And so, you know, he might work an hour a week, right? Whereas I'm working overtime. Like we're working constantly here. And because, you know, it takes a lot. And so our lives are totally different, but we both have to be taking time away from the screen time, because it's not good for either of us, whether for him it's Netflix, or for me it's, you know, being, you know, here with you guys. Everybody has to take a break. But you brought up reading as a thing to do, and I see that you've got one of your books over your shoulder. Let's talk about some, because people need to be reading, and why not read some of the things that you have written, which are available on your site, kerrymagro.com, correct?
Correct, yes. And I honestly didn't even realize that I was there. This is my old MacBook Pro from 2011 that doesn't work anymore. So it's become a placeholder to put books and magazines.
Well, bring it forward. Show people the cover, because that's you when you were a bambino, wasn't it? Or is it just on the screen? Is it the physical book?
It was me back in the day when I was a very, very young kid, when I was about 2.5, 3 years old, when I was still nonverbal. But my books are available on my website at kerrymagro.com/books. I've written a book on self-advocacy called Defining Autism from the Heart, Autism and Falling in Love, to help our loved ones go about going into relationships. And then my children's book, I Will Light Up Blue, which came out last year, about two twins on the autism spectrum. So I have another book that I'm planning on releasing at some point, hopefully in the fall of this year, depending on how this COVID situation goes. On college for those on the autism spectrum.
Well, timely. I've got a kiddo who's finishing his junior year, so I'm gonna need that one.
Awesome.
It's wonderful. He's fabulous. He's doing really well, and he's so far, you know, knock on wood, this quarantine is not bothering him. He's doing his classes, and I've pressed him into work. He keeps having to because he wants to study film, Kerry. And so we've made a couple of videos that he has been the person shooting them and editing them. So I've put him to work. And so as long as he's busy, he's a happy camper. Okay. And so Kerry, I haven't asked you, are you living in New York right now?
So I'm in Hoboken right now. It's been
still kind of the hotbed of where stuff is happening, right? Are you safe?
Absolutely. No, I am perfectly safe. I live in a big apartment complex where we have all the needs, Grubhub, Seamless, everything we could ever need. And groceries are very, very easy to come by, thankfully, because I know that's not in a lot of areas right now. So yeah, I've just been here and just weighing it out. And hopefully we'll be through this situation soon. But I know a lot of my friends in New York are having a very challenging time right now. And also New Jersey, we have the second highest diagnosis rate of COVID, I believe, right now.
Well, we want you to stay safe. Now, you mentioned normally you're out speaking everywhere. You would have had a very busy month. There's no way we would have had time. We would have had time, but you wouldn't have had time to do this if this month had played out like we thought it was going to play out. But I hear you saying that you're planning all these virtual webinars and things. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, sure. It's been really challenging because during the month of April, I was supposed to have 21 in-person talks. April is the biggest month of revenue for me as a professional speaker because it's World Autism Month. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of learning curves where a lot of groups were very against going to do their conferences via Zoom, their live events via like Google Hangout, Facebook Live, et cetera, and so forth. So most of my events got either postponed or canceled for the month. And it really made me have to recreate the wheel a lot in terms of my public speaking, which led to me just really reaching out to all my old contacts and really realizing that a lot of people were struggling because they some form of World Autism Month offense, but really didn't know how. And having a background in educational technology leadership, which was my doctorate, it gave me the opportunity to really look at how we can provide as many webinars during the month of April. So at least we can salvage World Autism Month even a little bit. So I have been doing Facebook Lives and Zoom webinars almost since the first week of April, and I still have ones lined up for the rest of April and May. And one of the great things that we're doing is we're actually doing a free webinar because we know that the unemployment rates are continuing to rise in the United States. So we're actually doing a weekly Zoom webinar for individuals in our community just to give them that education at this time and providing certificates of completion. So at least if somebody's looking to potentially get back into a workforce after this is over, they have a little bit something that they can add to the resumes.
And when and where are those? How do people register?
Sure. So I post all of them on my Facebook page at Kerry's Autism Journey. So we've been doing topics on navigating virtual learning. Our next one is how to succeed in school for a student with a learning disability. And then our final one at the end of the month is going to be on the 4 areas into adulthood. So looking at guardianship, employment, post-secondary, and housing. So busy.
Yeah. Okay, so we can check all that out on your Facebook page. You're incredible, and you know I know this is I know that this is annoying that I'm going to ask this, but I know people are writing in and they want to know, like, you seem so amazing. Are there areas that you still struggle in that are autism related?
Yes. So the biggest thing is transition difficulties and ironically enough, routine changes. And those are 2 of my biggest struggles to this day, along with definitely having a few challenges with social interaction at times. I can feel very overwhelmed. For example, if I'm at a big cocktail party where I know that for 3 hours, I'm going to be shaking hands, kissing babies, speaking to as many people as humanly possible. And that can feel very overwhelming for me. So those are definitely some of the big challenges that I still have to this day. And then just the whole routine change has been, it was very jarring at first, but now I'm kind of settling in.
So when you've got to go to a big event like a cocktail party and you gotta do the whole it's like at someday you do need to go into politics, Kerry. I'm just saying. After you do the movie star thing, you need to go into politics. Because I'll vote for you.
Absolutely.
Right? So you got to do that whole meet and greet, kiss the babies sort of thing. Not in this emergency, right? But no. Is there a ritual that you do beforehand to help you to be able to handle that? And is there something that you do afterwards to sort of decompress?
So the way I usually start out is I really just try to think about who are the major people I need to talk to at the events. So if I'm going to speak an event and there's a reception afterwards, knowing which people I'm probably going to be with at that time, who I'm going to be talking to the most, just because I like to be prepared for any situation, because it brings me to a place where if I'm prepared before I go into a situation, I'm much more calm and I'm much more able to be myself, not mask any certain behaviors as well. So that's definitely the big thing. And then afterwards, I definitely do like a glass of red wine after any type of event as kind of just a way of relaxing, but also just decompressing, being by myself. Watching sports is still the go-to. I try to find any type of sport and I try to just go to. That's a big thing.
Well, and we have to say, because you look quite young, but obviously you're Dr. Kerry Magro. You know, have a PhD. He is definitely of drinking age, so it's totally legal. Because you look a little young, Kerry. I don't want people writing in saying what's happening here. This is Dr. Kerry Magro, and he is definitely of legal age that he can enjoy a glass of red wine. No letters, please. So Kerry, we're just about out of time. Why don't we go through, tell them the Facebook page to go to again and your website again.
Sure. So it's Kerry's Autism Journey, which could just be found at facebook.com/specialcommunity. My website is kerrymagro.com if you're interested in learning more about the films and the books that I've worked on. And then just reach out to me anytime if you're looking for consulting, but also a Zoom webinar during the month of April. We've been working with businesses, schools, and community events during the entire month. It's been really, really great.
And same place, where do we go if we want to talk to you about mentoring, either for ourselves or for our kiddos?
Sure. So you could go to my website, kerrymagro.com, but you're also feel free to contact me via my email at any time at kerrymagro@gmail.com. We receive just a little over 200 emails a day from people in our community, and we try to get to as many as we possibly can because we realize it takes a village, and we want our community to not feel alone and just remember that there are people out there looking out for them.
And many people are writing in and saying, thank you so much for being here. But one in particular that jumps out at me, really good to hear and get information from this session. My son is 3 years, quite a happy child, verbal, but cannot tell what he needs most of the time. He was diagnosed at 2 years of age. And again, Kerry, I just know that like being able to see you, sometime I got to get your mother on the show. Like, I don't know if she's at all interested, but you know, I just feel like we would want to ask her 1,000,008 questions, but being able to see you, hear you, be with you, love you, gives us all hope. Because you are an incredible young man. And I think any of us would be so proud to claim you. And it gives us all kinds of hope for the direction that our kiddos are going in. So thank you for all that you do.
Well, thank you, Shannon, for having me on. And I'm trying to get my mom into public speaking. So I'll definitely be talking to her about
Hook me up. We've got to get Ms. Magro on the show to give us the 411 about all the things that she did. I know you're your own person and you are, you know, but let's face it, you know, we always, when we meet a mensch and you're a mensch, we always want to know, you know, okay, what did the mom prioritize so that we can grow mensches too. Kerry, just love you so much. We are totally out of time now, but come back to us whenever you want. We will make airtime for you. I'm not kidding.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. And thank you for having me on, and be safe.
You too. Keep us posted. All right. We love you, Kerry. Bye-bye. And that's really, we're past the time to go, but isn't he just divine? Isn't he just luscious? Every time he comes on, I'm just like, you know, let's, moment of gratitude, right? Showing us the way, Kerry Magro. Okay, tomorrow on the show, For Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, we are welcoming back to the show my fabulous friend, of course, Nancy Jackson will be here, but another good friend of ours, Vana Thiero, and she is an amazing mom, 2 boys on the spectrum. She's a documentary filmmaker, and her first film was My Thiero Boys, and now she's got a sequel. It's called Believing in Miracles in Spite of Autism. You're not going to want to miss it. Nobody speaks truth more than Vana Thiero. So be with us then. She's also started doing stand-up. I've not been able to go and see her do stand-up yet, but I can imagine it. So anyway, thank you all. Love to all of you. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
There we go. I was muted. Nancy, good morning.
Good morning, Shannon. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. As good as can be expected during all of this strange times we live in, right?
Right. We were just talking before we came on the air, Nancy and I was saying about there's a whole bunch of stuff that I have just stopped caring about. And
I know I saw something funny the other day on Facebook. You know those I voted signs with the American flag? It said I showered.
Exactly. And that, I got to be honest with you, that is like something I still very much care about. Like, because I can't go to bed at night without having a shower, and I can't put makeup on in the morning without having a shower. I'm one of those horrible people that wastes water and takes 2 showers a day. I'm a big woman. I need it.
I have been enjoying not washing my hair for a week at a time.
I cannot do it. I cannot hit the pillow unless I've had a shower. But there's other stuff that I just don't give a flying fig about, and that I just like my hair. Witness, I have to be able to wash it. I have to have water on my head. I'm a water baby, and I don't have a swimming pool, so I gotta have that. I gotta have that water sensory thing every day, a couple of times a day. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I just can't. And good morning. We're having people say good morning already. We're thrilled that you guys are here.
Good morning to everybody.
And with us.
Yeah, I know everybody's got different rules and regulations depending upon what state they're in. And it looks like some of the states are going to ease up on some of the restrictions.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I got to be honest. I know that a lot of people are out there hurting and that they need a paycheck and that, they're not getting access to the unemployment like they had believed that they were going to. But I just worry we're going to put ourselves in further danger. And, I have friends, I'm sure you do too, Nancy, that work in the medical field. And, they're the ones I'm listening to because
Right.
there's so much noise. But I have a very dear friend from high school that, is an administrator at a hospital, and I'm listening to what he's saying. And he's
And are they
saying,
having a lot of cases there?
oh, yes.
Because
And,
I have
and
the opposite experience. I have a friend at Los Robles Hospital, and she says the nurses are actually being given time off their shifts because there's not enough for them to do there.
are you kidding me?
No,
Well, my friend is in San Diego, and he is like, sit yourself down and don't go anywhere.
really? Okay.
He's like, the best thing you can do for me and my team right now is to sit your fanny down and not go
Yeah,
anywhere. So that's what
they
I'm
had
listening.
they had a surge in cases a couple of weeks ago, and then everything seemed to lighten up in the last couple of days. So
Well, that to me is evidence that it's working. So I
right.
just want to be careful about when we stop it. I don't know, but that's why better minds than mine are working on it. But yeah, we've got a little bit of news for you guys, and then we've got one of our favorite guests. Am I wrong,
Yes,
Nancy? This is one of our favorite people.
she's definitely one of our favorite guests.
And we both, Nancy and I, count her as a friend. She is super powerhouse Vana Thiero. And I'm never sure whether I'm pronouncing her last
I
name
think that's it,
correct.
Tiero. Yeah.
And but I'm always nervous because it's one of those names that it's like, ooh, I'm not sure. But Vana, we love Vana, and I always tell her I want to grow up to be her. I always wanted to grow up to be her. She is just a stunningly beautiful, articulate, wonderful, fabulous mother, and she's a filmmaker, and she's just an all around. She's a great friend. She's somebody who's enthusiastic and passionate about everything that she comes into contact with that's worthwhile. And she's just a sweet person. She's the kind of person that, if you're standing there in your distress, she would offer you the dress on her back. Am I wrong?
No,
She's
you're right.
just amazing.
She's a very caring person, and she's an incredible activist
Yeah.
in the world of autism. And we're going to talk to her about that and about her latest efforts she's a documentary filmmaker. And we're going to talk to her about her enterprises in that area and about her sons, Bakari and Carter.
Yes.
She has a lot to share, and we have a lot to talk to her about today.
And we've got quite a few comments that have come in already, people talking about what's happening in their state, about, in their state.
To know, what are some of them saying, Shannon?
Well, in one state, they're starting to let the hairdressers come back. That tells you where the priorities are. And those are people who have to work and eat too, but it tells you a lot, right?
Right.
That Oregon cases in their county are less, and lots are recovering, and no deaths at all. We love to hear that, people recovering.
That's fantastic.
Somebody else who says that I heard that Vegas is not opening for a while. Well, we heard in Los Angeles here the other day that they're already planning on canceling all of the big summer concerts for the entire summer. I don't know if you heard that, Nancy, that it's like basically.
No, I did not hear that, but I know that the
Yeah.
governor is discouraging any large social gatherings for many months. So
Yeah, they were basically saying the other day that, well, summer is canceled. So
right.
I don't know. We'll wait and see what happened. Somebody else is wanting to says, I wanted to know with their children not being in school, if you think that children on the autism spectrum will fall behind quite a bit. And I think that that's absolutely a concern.
Yes.
I think that all kids are going to fall behind. And so what I'm saying to autism parents, that just like when the summer comes and there's less services and all the other kids, we know it's called summer slide. The neurotypical kids will regress over the summer. But they'll catch them up again in the fall when they do the recap in the fall. But that's an opportunity for those of us who have kiddos on the spectrum. If we continue to, really be the drivers of making sure that there are things for our kids to do educationally and enriching, our kids can actually catch up. that we can not only maintain the skills that they have right now, and that's job number one, maintaining so that there's no regression. But then once you are maintaining, then you see if you can add some things as well, but maintaining first and foremost. So, it absolutely, you should be concerned about it, but be proactive about it and get involved. I know that, we've been trying to provide a lot of resources here for families and things to do. I want to encourage everybody, go to Autism Live's Pinterest page. Go log on to Pinterest. It's a free thing. And then once you're there, search Autism Live, and we've got tons of activities, and we've categorized them so that you can look and see. Some of them are specifically for at home. And there's a whole section, Nancy, on self-care, because we need the self-care, do we not?
We do. The problem is that a lot of moms and dads can't get away from their kids to do self-care. So a lot of it, I encourage you to do with your child.
Yes.
I bought a new bicycle during all this. I got a very cheap bicycle at Walmart, and it's absolutely beautiful. And my son Wyatt already bike. So we've been going on bike rides around the neighborhood. So that's a way for me to get exercise while he gets exercise.
Wonderful.
Yeah, if you haven't practiced doing deep breathing with your child and some very basic yoga positions, I encourage you to do that with your child, because I know it's hard for a lot of parents to get away from their kids, but it's also a great time to do arts and crafts. And I know you have a lot of those on your Pinterest page.
Yes,
and that can be very relaxing. And, it's a time maybe when you haven't had time to do that you can do it now. Cooking, projects in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Another thing, we're making homemade dog biscuits today.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful, Nancy.
Right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times people,
you don't have time to do.
Yes. And people, I'm so glad that you brought up what you brought up, because a lot of times we picture the self-care thing. It's the woman sitting on the beach in the lotus position by herself. And we can't all, have that, especially not right now. But I will tell you that it's as important to do self-care as it is to model self-care for your kiddos. So I love that you said do it with your kiddo. Like, there's no reason why you can't. We've given you lots of meditation ideas on the show, and there's a whole playlist on the Pinterest page of meditations that you can do with your kiddo. And like you said, going bike riding, you can you can paint your toenails together with your kiddos. There are a whole, now it's not going to go the same way as it would have gone if you weren't with your kiddo. Let's not kid ourselves, right? But the fact of the matter is that you do those things with your kiddo. Okay, and people are saying, ooh, lots and lots of things here, and I don't want to miss them. Maybe we'll forego the news because it wasn't that good. I'd rather answer questions. How do you feel?
Actually, one of the stories I did want to just talk about, we don't have to get into detail on it, but it is about the situations at residential homes that comes out of Arizona. So I do want to touch on that, Shannon, because I think that one's important. But let's go ahead and
all right, let's answer a few questions, and then let's definitely touch on that. So somebody said, Spectrum, if my son has autism and a chromosome disorder and I have no chromosome doctor here in Las Vegas, what would you recommend? And I think both Nancy and I agree that MedMaps is a great place to go. You can look for them online. They can tell you what doctors that they have that are registered, certified with MedMaps, and that's MedMaps with 2 P's. And put MedMaps autism into Google, and you'll be able to find them. And you should be able to find a doctor who can really help you. And you'll see, I'm relatively sure there's at least one in Las Vegas. Somebody else says, I drive school bus, special needs, and no extended school year. Yeah, a lot of things have been canceled through up until fall. We are thriving in home therapy with CARD, but worry about my bus kids. It's hard. It is hard. It's hard for everybody, but I'm glad that you're getting what you need at home with CARD. And of course, I'm always encouraging people, don't stop your therapy right now. Some of you are still doing in-home therapy, and if you can get that, fabulous, wonderful. It is considered a medically necessary treatment, so you can do that. But many of you have switched or are switching to telehealth. And I am urging everyone, because what I keep hearing from all the parents that try it, they're like, oh my gosh, this is saving my keister. So I encourage everybody out there, I'm challenging you, try the telehealth and write into us. Okay, and then we've got Daniel Tiger. People are recommending Daniel Tiger, that they have deep breathing on Daniel Tiger. I love Daniel Tiger because, you know, that's a spinoff of the Mr. Rogers Show.
Is that on PBS, Shannon? Is that on PBS?
It is on PBS. And
Okay.
you can also find, they have a website online too. I always love that PBS does interactive stuff online. So if your kiddo likes watching the show, go find PBS Kids online and find some of the games and educational videos that they have that go with that show. They're really fabulous about making things integrative. And somebody else says, thank you so much. I'm learning a lot from your shows. Thank you, because that's all we want to do, is to be able to help, information and inspiration, right? And we're saying hello to Helen. Hello, Helen. How are you,
Hello,
my friend?
Helen.
Okay, so let's talk about that news story, because I
Yes.
think this is important to our community.
Right. And this is something, Shannon, the story, basically, to recap it, comes out of Arizona, and it's how the group homes for the disabled have not been given guidelines for dealing with this coronavirus crisis. Many of them have been left to their own devices to figure out what to do. And there is an increased incidence of coronavirus at many of these group homes for the disabled. So not only are they not being given guidelines on and given the protective equipment, the masks and the gloves that are needed, they're not being given any guidelines on how to deal with the situation. And that the kids, the young adults and older adults at these homes are not having their regular program. So I've been wondering, what are they doing all day with these kids?
Well, and it is catastrophic at this point, because, you know, we've seen that in some of the senior homes and nursing facilities, that once one person is infected with COVID through, you know, a visitor that came through 14 days ago, or a staff member who inadvertently got it and came to work and didn't know, because we're finding out that people are contagious before they're symptomatic, that then it goes wildfire through the facility. And that the people who are working there are often minimum wage workers, that again, the states have given them no information about this is what you should be doing, letting them know about the protective gear that they need to wear. So, we've been seeing in the last 14 days, the news stories about the nursing homes and how those numbers, the deaths in the nursing homes, haven't necessarily been counted. And it's a very scary thing. And now, just in the last 2 weeks, people have been saying, okay, what about these placements where the kids are in, there, and before they would have been going to an internship or to a day program, but now they're left in their facility, gathered together with other people, with people who don't know how to protect them. And we know we have.
And parents have not been able to see their children, or in many cases, talk to them to find out how they're doing. They haven't been able to visit because of the quarantine rules. So we know of at least one mom who was not able to visit her son, had to drop something off, drive up and unroll the window and drop something off. And he was terribly confused. And she has sent him out of his group setting. I don't know how that's going, because the group setting was something that was deemed necessary for him to be in residential. And so then if you've got kids that you are pulling out of the residential, how are you dealing with them at home with no help is another situation that's tough.
The whole thing is very, very overwhelming. So we are, we're trying to just shed a little bit light on it. If you are someone who has an adult child or a teenager that is in a group setting, we urge you to reach out and find out if your facility has a plan to deal with this, and check in and see what's happening, because we've seen far too many stories now of places that were not prepared and didn't know what they were doing, and it's a matter of life and death. So please check not just on your kiddo, check on the staff on what the plan is, and take appropriate measures, whatever those are. And I don't even know what those are. That might mean helping to find PPE for them, or removing I don't know. I don't know. It's so overwhelming, Nancy. It's a bigger
I
problem
know,
than I
it
know.
really is. I feel for those families that are in this position that, don't know what's going on at the homes that their child is placed in. I really feel for them.
I want to go back to the mom who was asking specifically about the chromosome doctor and autism, and then the chromosome part. I think you're going to run into a sticky wicket that there are very specific doctors who work with chromosome. But my guess is that you're wanting, for your child with autism and a chromosome issue to be as healthy as possible and make the most progress, which may not mean going to a chromosome specialist. It may mean going to a functional medicine doctor who knows a little bit about chromosomes and how they affect someone with autism. That's why I'm recommending the med maps, which would be different than a chromosome doctor. And I also want to tell you that, because she's saying that the doctor is telling her that the closest one would be in Colorado. And that might be the case, but because of this COVID emergency, there were telehealth rules in place, and they have been relaxed during this emergency. So right now, it used to be that we used to tell you about MedMaps doctors, for instance, one of my favorite, Dr. Berger in Florida, in Tampa, Florida, and we would have to tell you now, at a certain point, you had to go to Florida to see him. Then you could find a naturopath here, wherever here is. And if that person was a naturopath, then they could do telehealth with Dr. Berger, and that you could be connected with them that way. Now, all the rules are relaxed. And the truth of the matter is that you can be calling a doctor in another place and saying, they can get the lab work done locally, but you can get a doctor from another state to do a telehealth call with you right now, and it's all straight up legal. It's not probably going to be forever. So I would sort of take advantage of that, and find yourself a doctor. Doesn't matter which state, ask them to do telehealth with you. They can Zoom with your kiddo and they can look at the lab reports. But I think there's actually an opportunity. Okay. So it's time. And we love her so much. She's just an incredible person. So Traven, I hope that she is there. And if she is, would you connect us in? We've had a little bit of a wonky week here. You guys, we've had some staff changes and stuff. And so if it looks like our wheels have come off a little bit, it's because they have. In any case, there she is. It all worked.
Hi, Vana.
Okay, so if you play with your thing, and you need to turn on your mic. I know there's a little microphone in the front. Do you see your microphone? She can't hear us yet. Okay. I don't know what to do for her. Let's type to her. Turn on your mic.
That's connecting to audio.
There we go.
There it is.
There we go. Look how fabulous you look.
Oh, look how wonderful you look. I'm giving you big hugs. I miss you both.
How do you look so fabulous this early?
Oh, I prepared.
Well, I said the other day, who's going to be with us on Friday? It's Vana. And I said, she is notorious for being bone to the honest. So I love that you said, yes, I look this way because I prepared. I would expect nothing less from you. How you are just scrumptious. I said earlier, I've told you this before, I want to grow up to be you, and I've always wanted to be you since I was old enough to have memory. You were what I wanted to grow up to be. Can I just say? So there you go. Yeah. And I still want to be you when I grow up. So There we have it.
And I used to wonder, what does this mean? But then you told me your history. It happened even before you met me.
Yes. No, you were the idea in my head of who I wanted to be when I grew up.
You mean physically? You mean looks-wise?
Everything.
Everything.
I wanted to be a tall, beautiful, thin Black woman. I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be somebody who was a mover and a shaker. I wanted to have incredible hair and incredible style. Like, I wanted to be Vana.
Okay,
and I didn't know I was Vana.
Well, and I didn't have a name.
Also, Shannon, you're both comedians.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
And Vana
Although she's out there doing it, I
she's
just
out
sit
there
here.
doing it now, which we can talk about. Vana, you've been doing pursuing your lifelong dream of being a comedian and doing stand-up, and you've been doing stand-up regularly, right?
Yes, for an entire year. I did it way back in the 90s, but I just found the time, because you have to be in the clubs late. But I have to say, Nancy, Shannon's play, what was it, a year and a half ago?
The Autism Monologues.
And the theater and her comedic writing, that was such an inspiration. And she knows I'm always saying, come on, get back on stage, get back on stage. She could do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, well, we were supposed to be doing it this month, and then this little COVID thing happened.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about it.
Yes, well, do something live.
Listen, I'm trying. But you've been doing, like I saw the other night that you were still doing stand-up and doing it online, correct?
Out of my living room. Okay, this is facing the dining room. I turn it that way for the living room, and that's my stage for stand-up.
Good for you.
Can't even believe it. Somebody is saying, hi, Vana, awesome, sending sister love.
Oh, back at that.
There we go.
Vana, I want to talk a little bit. I don't know if you were listening at the beginning of the show, and before we get into what you're up to now, because you've got a lot of exciting new developments with your documentary filmmaking, we were talking about the situation at some of the residential homes, and you have a son that's in a residential placement.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what your experience has been with that during this crisis.
Yes, just to back up a little bit, he's in a phenomenal home, the White Group home in Palmdale, which is like an hour and a half, sometimes more with traffic away from us. Since this whole happening, I have not been able to see my son. And you guys know, I was there once a week and we'd have wonderful time together. So it was just so painful. But we have, just like we're doing now, Zoom capabilities. And so I've actually seen him more via Zoom.
Wow.
That's fantastic. So your experience with this has been good in terms of what they're providing you at the home to connect with him.
Yeah, I mean, I tried, I tried. I said, what do I have to do? It's like, do I have to show up with my test papers? Do I have to, show you guys I was, social distancing for 14 days? What can I do? And they said, if I take him out, he cannot come back. Yeah. And our apartment simply would not help him during this confinement period. He needs a yard. He needs a trampoline. He needs, all that he has at his disposal right now. So he gets to see his mommy a little bit more, and we've been reading. I had talked in his last IEP to the school about giving him age appropriate reading, which at his age, they had read The Great Gatsby. So we're reading The Great Gatsby every time I talk to him.
That's awesome. See, this is why I want to be you when I grow up, because this is how you roll. You take whatever's happening, you figure out, what do I need to do? And ask questions. You ask your questions, and then you say, okay, how am I going to make the most of what this is? That's who you are as a mom. That's who you are as a person. And that's who you are as a filmmaker. So let's talk about you as a filmmaker, Vana, and what you've been up to over the years and what's going on right now.
All right, you got it. Yeah, when it came to filmmaking, I just did what I had to do. You guys know, my background's in documentaries and news. And when I was at CNN, we won an Emmy for our 9/11 coverage. And both my guys were diagnosed with autism. So when my marriage dissolved, my friends looked at my life and said, this is wild. You need to create a documentary. Of course, I was deep in depression, but eventually pulled myself out of it, went to Craigslist, got a little bitty flip camera, and bought Final Cut Pro online and shot and edited the first film, My Thiero Boys, which screened internationally and was nominated for an Africa Movie Academy Award. Craziness. I had no idea the level of acclaim it would achieve. So immediately at that point, the boys were a little older because it takes a long time. We parents were starting to wonder what happens when we're gone. So that nugget just, I couldn't let go of. And so I started videotaping interviews for this second documentary, Believing in Miracles in Spite of Autism, meaning I'm believing that somehow all these programs that we parents are creating when we're gone will still exist, will still serve our children, because 1 in 59, that's a lot of individuals, 1 in 37 boys. So, you know, when we're gone, that's a ton, that's millions. And, you know, these are numbers that were calculated back in 2014. So we don't even know the numbers and what's going to happen. So we're focusing on work initiatives, housing initiatives, and a shift in the education paradigm, because we all know of, Dylan Barmouche and Ido Kedar and Justice Killebrew, all these individuals, and, you know, the film with Deej, you know, there are non-speakers who have been taught ways to communicate using one finger, pointing at letters and spelling. And this, had this been in kindergarten for all of our children, because it helps the partial speakers. And I'm so excited for people like Edlin Pina out at, what's the university out in Thousand Oaks? Anyway, she has a wonderful,
Cal Lutheran? Is it Cal Lutheran?
Yes, Cal Lutheran. They have a wonderful seminar once a year where they bring all the non-speakers together and they dialogue at tables. Now, there are people in institutions who hold the reins for funding who aren't even aware of this. And that's why I'm doing this film, because there are people out there who don't know what they don't know.
That's
right. You're very
true.
involved with the nonverbal community. We want to say that, Vana, you have a son who's nonverbal.
Yes.
And so you've been very involved with that segment of the autism population and bringing light to some of the developments there that you were just talking about.
Yes, I in research for my first film, I watched A Mother's Journey, where this woman comes from Switzerland and she meets Soma of Halo. I'm not going to mess up Soma's last name because I reverence her too greatly. She came up with a method with her own non-speaking son. And one of her first students was Ido. And what I learned at Edlin's conference is it's effective for partial speakers. Partial speakers have more going on in there. And through spelling, they have elaborate thought, where vocally, it's quite minimal. So I'm just pushing for that. You know, I have the nonverbal communication mandate bill proposal, which I'm going to raise up soon. And we'll get that into play and get these methods into the classrooms.
You're
Okay,
always
let's talk
making
a little bit, Vana, about what you found out during your experience of putting together this film about what's going to happen when we're gone. What have you found out in researching and producing this?
And I want to say too, we have a trailer. So I want to tell Traven, let's have Vana answer that question, but I want to have Traven being ready because we're going to show the trailer in just a couple of minutes here.
You got it. The first thing I found out is most people who aren't connected with autism, it never crossed their mind. The second thing I found out is that if we don't get them aware, legislation may come out down the road that will work against our children. And so the main thing I learned is that we need to educate those who don't know so that they will support this population once we're gone.
Well, and Vana, I think it's even bigger than that, because I think that there's a large section of the autism community that doesn't know. And I'm going to include myself in that because you are my educator on these things.
Yeah, I'm not my educator. I find from everybody else, I consider myself, you know, one of those DJs. I find somebody who knows something, I make them my friend. I read up on them. I get all their data. I interview them and get them on camera for this documentary.
I'm sure also, Vana, you found out that we're really not prepared, like you said, for the onslaught of numbers that are going to be entering, the kids that are entering adulthood are already adults, and what to do with them. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And that's why I'm so excited to ask people to donate, because listen, there's the ABLE Foundation that works with community colleges to create actual career employment, not just the job. Then there's Extraordinary Ventures, out of North Carolina, with where they are creating jobs based on the talent of all the spectrum adults. They develop where they will work. It's, so many different things are happening out there. And Joe and Laura with Autism Works Now. And see, all these education, employment initiatives are duplicatable. So we want to show how they created it, how they created the model again in another city, how other parents learned of it and ran with it, and have autistic adults being employed right now. And
Yes.
we want to continue that.
Now you brought up donation. So, because you're at a place in the film where you could use some money to finish this off. Am I correct?
Absolutely. I am looking to raise $179,000. Back when I did my first film, a couple thousand, my good friend Gia Gulden with the Samaritan's House gave me a couple hundred. I used all my income tax returns. All my money goes to my documentary film. Let me tell you, every little 50, every little 100, I shoot with it. Yeah, and and then I had a girlfriend, Susie Stringazer, who is passed now. She bought me a camera. So since then, the documentary industry has changed. Everything is 4K. Everything is big money. They're spending millions on these documentaries. So in order for us to compete and even grab the eyeballs of people out there, we have to deliver a high caliber product. So I've been fortunate enough to shoot the interviews with every dime I've been given. We got a grant that sustained us the last couple years from the Edward Harris Foundation, and people like Ariva Martin and Nancy and Lisa Wayans and Teresa Jackson have given multiple times, really nice sizable donations. And my buddy, Dr. Michael Herron down in Atlanta, he's helped support us. So we've been shooting interviews. Now we have the bulk of the B-roll. We know that's a TV term. The bulk of the footage that you will see throughout the entire documentary. I've got to hire expensive crews for a 4-day shoot. I mean, a 4-hour shoot to shoot all these people, all these places. And then we've got to edit it. And our editing budget is somewhere around $71,000. And we want to start editing in January 21.
Okay, so we're going to show everybody the trailer, and we're going to invite you and encourage you to be in. Haven't you always wanted to be an investor in a film that could change the world? So we're going to ask you to go to the couch cushions, $5, $10, $5,000 if you have it. This is a place where you can move the dial. We're also going to do a shout out right now to Michelle Obama, who has a documentary film company, and say, Michelle, we need you now, right? Because this is who would be the best possible person for you to partner with. I've just decided that now. You never have said that to me. But Michelle Obama, we've always wanted you to partner with something for the autism community. Here you are. We need you right now. But in the meantime, let's all pitch in so that we can show Michelle Obama why their documentary, because the Obamas they're partnering, they're producing documentary films. They want films that can change the world. Here we go. So Traven, have we got that trailer ready to go?
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you. Are you kidding me? We love you so much. Take a look, you guys. Here's the trailer, Believing in Miracles in Spite of Autism. And then there was a pause.
This is dedicated to all the people that suffer from autism all over the world.
Autism burst onto the scenes in the 1930s, but began rapidly increasing over the past 20 years. Incidence rates before 1985, 1 in 2,500. 2000, 1 in 150. 2006, 1 in 110. 2008, 1 in 88. 2012, 1 in 68. 2014, 1 in 59 children diagnosed with autism each year in America, and 1 in 37 boys. And as parents of autistic children await the Center for Disease Control's most recent statistics, the bigger concern is, what's going to happen to our children when we, the parents, are gone? And they are adults, 50, 60, 70 years of age. Who's really gonna care for them?
I'm doing my best to raise my children so that they can be independent. But I don't know what would happen to them if I'm not around. They could end up in jail. Studies show that thousands of diagnosed and undiagnosed people with autism are behind bars with little to no support.
It is really unfortunate in so many families, and for decades, not long ago, these children were being isolated, kept in the back room, never being introduced to anything or anyone else.
This is really scary. The fear of most parents with children diagnosed with autism is beyond belief.
That could be my Bakari. He doesn't have language. What would happen to him? And studies show that autistic people have an elevated risk of becoming homeless.
I believe government's core principal function is to provide support to its citizenry, or at the state level, its residents, particularly those who can't provide it for themselves.
It's society's responsibility. It's not just the parents. We have to step in and do something.
Oh, Vana, it's so good. There it is, you guys. That's where you can go to donate. Please, please, please donate.
Yeah, fantastic, Vana. Really, that encapsulates what you're trying to accomplish here. And your skills as a documentarian are just unbelievable. I was so moved by that. And wonderful to see your sons, Bakari and Carter, there too.
And Wyatt. Wyatt was in there. Yeah. Lovely shot of Wyatt.
Quick shot of me and Wyatt.
And so many other people that we love. And I think Nancy's right. I think the thing that I was talking about before about how you were just to the bone honest, you have a way as a filmmaker. You know, when we first saw the screening of My Thiero Boys, and I remember sitting with a group of moms and people were so moved they couldn't breathe. I remember at one point thinking, oh my gosh, like, am I gonna make it? Because I can't, like, there's so much emotion, there's no noise I can make. I can't get air in or out, because you take us there. You absolutely take us there. And you do it very lovingly, and you do it with a sense of humor and grace. But you take us to the place where we don't want to look, and you force us to look. And it's a gift that you have. I'm so glad that you have persisted. I know that's your middle name, persistence. But it's a good thing that you do. You're doing the right things.
That is so kind of you. Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate it. You know, I just kind of go with the flow. I've always been a fly by the seat of my pants type of person. You know, I get a bright idea, that light bulb goes off, and I don't know where I'm going, but I just go and I go full speed ahead.
Yeah, well, you're the kind of person that I want to spend my life with. You know what I mean? Like, surrounded by people like you, because that's the good stuff. It's absolutely the good stuff.
It's a mutual admiration society. I feel the same way about you. I feel the same way about that mover and shaker right there, Miss
I know.
Jackson. She's a fireball, that one.
I know.
Let me ask you, we saw in that clip a lot of very important public figures that you pursued for interviews in this. do you feel at all hopeful after talking to some of these? We had Senator Holly Mitchell, for example, Gloria Molina you had there in that clip, and I imagine you have many others that you speak to in this film. Are you hopeful after speaking with them at all? We know this is a tough situation that we're facing, but are you at all hopeful?
Of course I'm hopeful. Primarily, Nancy, because I choose to be hopeful. These particular legislators have always been on our team. Gloria Molina, while she was supervisor, she helped the Latino community in many ways, starting organizations, being a voice for parents with children on the spectrum, and actually going into homes and going into schools and making a difference. You know, Holly Mitchell has been one of Areva Martin's right-hand, left-hand people. Areva knows how to galvanize legislators. And yes, we do have more. One I'm looking forward to interviewing is Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas, who's worked with Special Needs Network, and they've opened an autism center. So that was several years in the making. They broke ground in 2019. So we're going to get him on camera. And another advocate, Holly Robinson Pete with the Holly Rod Foundation, you know, she has a vocational center named after her son, RJ's place, where my son, Carter, and many people's children were able to become employed.
Yeah, you've got two incredible sons, and they're very different, like they would be, like anybody's sons would be different, but they are also very different in where they fall on the spectrum. And tell just a little bit for people who don't know you about the story of your boys, Vana.
Well, my oldest Carter, he was just so cute. I had children late in life, people. So by the time I had gotten all my partiness out of me, that's a lie, it's still there. Anyway, I had Carter and I wanted to do everything for him. So I was that crazy mother who did flashcards while he was in the crib. I put everything educational around him. So when he began to hit milestones, they were hit or miss. You know, he could sing songs. He knew his ABCs. He knew Barney had just come out, so he could do all the Barney songs, but he couldn't put a 3-word sentence together. That's when we started seeing the jargon and the echolalia. He couldn't touch his nose. And fortunately, I had other parents around me with kids his age, and they were doing things and I was kind of looking at him. Well, anyway, autism was new. This was back in 1997-ish. And he got diagnosed. Well, by the time we were going through the process, it's a lengthy process. You get one exam and then you're put on a waiting list for several weeks, sometimes months, for the next process. Well, Bakari was hitting all his benchmarks and had language, little benchmark language, not full on sentences. But then his entire countenance changed, and he really went away from us. So we were able to get him diagnosed. And initially I thought he wasn't affected, but then it turned out it was a bit more severe. Now, because of these methods that, you know, fortunately, Ito's mom, Tracy Kedar, is working with my youngest son, teaching him how to communicate through spelling and pointing to letters, and eventually he'll graduate to keyboards. I found out he's incredibly intelligent, incredibly brilliant. And see, we were taught back then that people like Carter were smarter than people like Bakari, but they're all extremely intelligent. They just like everybody else, we have different ways of showing it. And some of us have better ability of showing it through different means, through different avenues. Like some people simply aren't articulate, but when they sing, they communicate deeper than anybody who, you know, can recite a speech, you know? And then there are those who can paint something and it just moves people beyond their lifetime, but they weren't able to communicate in a, you know, round table conversation. So Carter's verbal, He's able to actually not be detected in most social settings. Bakari, if he doesn't speak and he stands still, he's able to not be detected in most social settings. But then when people ask him a question, he's not able to respond. And then when he gets what's called STEM hyperactive, he runs and jumps and does things that typical people just don't do. And then he's detected. So they're very different, but both, I am grateful, both very loving, very affectionate, and they're both a bit vigilant to help improve their own lives in their timing.
And your oldest son, Carter, he still he lives with you. Is that correct? But Bakari is the one that is in a place where you're able to Zoom with him every day. There we go. Okay.
Vana, I have a question about, I knew you, of course, during the transition of Bakari going into residential placement. Talk a little bit about, because we have so many families, including myself, that have that in the future for them. Talk about the adjustment for that. Was that difficult for you? And now that you are where you are, the sense of probably relief that you have about that. Can you talk to that?
Yes, let's start with where I am now, because I haven't been taken there in a while and I started welling up all over again. But right now, especially during this thing we're going through, what I call it that shall not be named. I'm a Harry Potter fan. I love that term. So yeah, I mean, right now, I know I made the best choice because he is well cared for and by people who run a home that follow the law, follow the rules, and help their clients thrive. So that's incredible. Now, he always had behaviors ever since he was a tiny guy, and he would go off to the point that the way we learned to handle it was to go in the room and lock ourselves in the room and listen until he was done. And then we'd come out because we had, experienced some really horrific episodes. So these would come and go, and we consulted a psychiatrist who was able to, different times provide us a medication which would curb these behaviors. Behaviors is how we refer to them in our industry. And then he'd have a growth spurt, and then things would get good and he could come off the meds, because I'm not a real medicine person. So we went to natural medicines for a while, and then he grew, and then behaviors returned. And so all along, we knew this was a potential, and I always kept his dad in the loop, and I always kept the regional center in the loop. I let our case coordinator know that we may need to access the option of a group home. So they were always mindful to keep us aware of what group homes were available, where they were, how we could access them, and to keep us ready to be on a waiting list. Because, if the time came where we said he's got to go to a group home, we didn't want it to last a long time and then more damage be done. So I had an experience, really, now in hindsight, I know what it was all about. Anyway, I took a major pounding in public. It was so upsetting because he lost it, and he lost it in his communication class. He was doing it once a week, and then they escalated to twice a week. But what I realize now that he's receiving communication, it wasn't challenging him, and I couldn't understand why he wasn't cooperating. Nancy?
I think she's frozen on us, Nancy.
Yeah, I think she froze on us.
Okay, I'll keep talking. They say that
sorry.
kids are actually smarter and they aren't being challenged, and that's why they act out in class. Well, the same thing was happening with Bakari. He was in a communications class that wasn't pushing him and really doing what he knew he wanted to share. So he stopped participating, and this made me mad, and I was upset about it. So I just said, well, we're going home. Well, we hit the parking lot and he retaliated. And I'm sure everything he was saying in all of those strikes that he landed upon me, which the next day had me seeing stars. You know how you see stars in the cartoons?
Yeah.
It was no cartoon. I heard the ringing, like they say boxers hear a ringing. I heard the ringing. Anyway, I realized he was saying, they don't know what I know. I can tell more. I can do more. So now he's doing it, and his behaviors are pretty much nil now that he can communicate. But back then, as soon as, I don't know what made him stop, but when he stopped, we got in the car and I said, listen, I told you, if this ever happened again, you're gonna have to live with someone else. So with him there in the car, I called our regional center coordinator. I left a voicemail detailing what had happened and that it was time for placement. He understood that. And I knew he understood that. So she was fortunate in that she kept in touch with an ABA specialist, and the ABA specialist knew the better homes because she worked in them and recommended the white group home. And they had just purchased a second home and had a spot for my son Bakari. When we went to interview and take him to see the space, a young man had just been placed prior who walked down the stairs who happened to have gone to Bakari's school. So he had a buddy that he knew. And
that's great.
It's really a phenomenal success story.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Vana, because I know there are a lot of families out there that, you know, have children with behaviors that they are looking at, you know, the future, what the future might hold. And you're really an inspiration to so many parents out there in terms of having a child that's nonverbal and dealing with that situation. You're a real inspiration to them.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Shannon. You know, everybody who knows me sends parents to me. They can give them my number. I've helped many parents navigate these waters. And someone told me, what if I had done it when he was younger? Maybe that would have prevented what happened later. Don't know, but I just let people know it is a good thing. Just find the right home.
We've only got 2 minutes left here, so I want to get some got some business we got to take care of. First, people are asking, they're saying they're so moved by the trailer for the new film, and they're asking, where can we watch the first film, Vana? Where can we send them so they can find out more, get links to be able to donate, and to watch everything that they can about both films?
Well, contact me. I guess, wow. Yeah, email is
well,
easy.
how about this? How about they can write to us if they specifically want, and we'll forward it off to you. Let's do that. So you can write to me, s.penrod@autism-live.com, and I'll connect you with Vana. Because to see the first film, they can do a showing in their community. Maybe you want to start doing a virtual showing. I don't know.
I'm open to screenings. You can do it in your living room, 2, 5 people. I recommend that you do it with the group because, as Shannon said, it's so emotional. If you watch it yourself, you might stop and not come back. So
you gotta have some people, gotta have community to talk about, even if you guys watch it and then discuss it on Zoom, but you gotta have some support. It's emotional. It's a journey.
And I can Zoom in for Q&A afterwards. I would love to be able to share and connect heart to heart after you've seen it. But yeah, I have it available. I can send you the link and the password.
Is there a Facebook page or a website for the new film where they can go and check things out?
We have an Instagram page for the new film. It's called In Spite of Autism, at In Spite of Autism.
Okay, fantabulous. We want to thank you so much for being here. I got to give a quick shout out for the fact that a week from today, Nancy doesn't even know this, I haven't told her yet. A week from today on the show, we are interviewing together, Nancy, you and I, Eustacia Cutler, Temple Grandin's mother, is with us next week on the show.
So excited about
awesome?
that, Shannon. Yes, very excited.
So next week on the show on Monday, listen to this lineup. On Monday, we've got special education attorney Bonnie Yates and autism advocate Cassidy Hooper is going to be with us on Monday. Then on Tuesday, Temple Grandin's back here with us live on Tuesday answering your questions. I know. Yeah. We're going to have Temple and her mother in the same week. It's like mind-blowing. Okay, Wednesday, we're having Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh on the show to answer your questions. And then on Thursday, we are having teen actor Kobe Bird. You've seen him on The Good Doctor. You have seen him now on the hit show Lock and Key. I just got goosies. He's here with us on Thursday. We haven't had him since Lock and Key went totally gonzo on Netflix. So he'll be here. And then we're going to finish out the week with Eustacia Cutler here with Nancy and I live answering your questions. So it's a great week. I'm very excited about it. But Vana, so great to have you here. Nancy, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you, honey, for being on. You're such an inspiration to everybody.
You are. We love you.
As are both of you to me.
Love, love, love. So you guys, we'll be back here on Monday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me as well.
Bye-bye for now, you guys. There we go. Bye-bye. Yay.
Yay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you.